Welcome to HMG Live, a production of HMG Strategy, your global partner helping you to reimagine the business and reinvent the future of work. Home to the HMG Strategy Global Technology Executives Who Matter Awards, and also offering the HMG Marketplace, a fast, easy, safe, and efficient way to connect with the right vendors for your technology needs.
My own personal experience with connections actually does start with HMG, where I would attend HMG events for the networking opportunities, the opportunity to learn from my peers. It's one of the ways that I became an effective CIO at KLA Tencor. And it was actually at an HMG event in 2010 that I got connected to the recruiters at Facebook through a CIO here. These types of events and functions are really important, both for people to develop themselves, but also for us to just make our profession more effective, because we can cross-pollinate ideas and help each other innovate by learning from each other's mistakes and each other's successes. And I think HMG probably does this better than anybody.
And now, a warm welcome to today's host, Lead Principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good afternoon, and welcome. Welcome to the 2020 Dallas CIO Executive Leadership Summit. I'm Hunter Muller, Lead Principal at HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. I think we have an amazing summit, an awesome program, really a packed agenda with world-class thought leadership. And we're going to hear from some of the top industry thought leaders and practitioners here in the next couple hours. So please stay tuned in right to the very end. Big shout out to our partner Appian. Appian delivers best of breed hyper automation capabilities, workflow, RPA, AI, decision rules, intelligent document processing, and case management at the speed of low code, bringing teams back to work safely, reimagining processes, automating workflows, and building new customer experiences all are made possible with Appian. As well, today's summit is powered by RingCentral. Work together from anywhere. Bring employees and customers together. The world's #1 business communications platform. RingCentral supports any mode, any device, anywhere. It's easy to use and easy to buy, easy to manage, secure, reliable, and open. 400,000 customers and partners globally trust RingCentral in their search for the world's easiest meeting platform. And we couldn't do what we do today here and then throughout the whole year without our partners. A big shout out to Adobe, Appian, Informatica, Redis Labs, RingCentral, and SMC Squared. You'll be hearing from each of these folks here today, later in the program. And I want to welcome Jamie Frost, who's the president of the Dallas-Fort Worth SIM chapter and a CIO himself. Hey, Jamie, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Hunter, for the introduction. And I wanted to personally welcome all attendees on behalf of the DFW chapter of SIM. I know we have a number of guests here today who are members of SIM. Thank you to our speakers, our panelists, and most certainly our sponsors. As Hunter indicated, without our sponsors, we couldn't put on great events like this. A special shout out to Hunter, Melissa, Nikki, Brianna, and the rest of the HMG crew for planning this event. I'm excited about the agenda. I'm looking forward to the next few hours. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that if you're not a member of SIM today, we'd love to have you. It's an excellent peer group. I've relied on them, for a number of years. We've got great programs, both in terms of what we executed in 2020, but also in 2021. Opportunities to develop your next in line leadership, fun sporting events, and networking events. Please, if you're not a member, join us. We'd love to have you. Excellent. Thanks again to HMG, and cheers to a great event today.
Jamie, we've got a great partnership for years. Really appreciate all of your help and support.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Hey, next up, we have Mark Taylor. Mark's the CEO of SIM International. Is Mark going to join us? I guess not. Okay. Help us refine the HMG marketplace. The marketplace is where you can meet top tier partners from all over the world, including Silicon Valley. We have a brief quiz here for you. Please fill out the pop-up questionnaire. What's your organization's specific technology need now? All right, and now on to the video on the 2020 Global Technology Executives Who Matter Recognition Program.
Later in today's program, HMG Strategy founder and CEO Hunter Muller will proudly recognize and honor global technology executives who matter. These top-tier CIOs, CISOs, and other technology executives have genuinely distinguished themselves in business transformation, digital disruption, innovation, and talent development through even the most difficult circumstances. These awards are not given lightly. They are earned. Recipients join an elite community of forward-thinking global technology executives in the HMG Strategy community. We are delighted to celebrate these exemplary leaders and their teams who have delivered unparalleled value to their organizations, their communities, and our world. Please stay with us for the awards ceremony and meet the 2020 Global Technology Executives who matter.
And again, that'll be at the end of today's program. Hey, thanks for dialing in. Let's get on with the summit here. First up, we have Simon Longbottom. Simon's the VP of Enterprise Digital Media at Adobe. We're going to be discussing digitally transforming the employee and customer experience, which is on everyone's mind here and now. As a background, Simon is the Vice President of Digital Media, Business and Enterprise Offerings. Simon leads product marketing, product management, and go-to-market for digital media's wide range of industry-leading enterprise offerings. Prior to Adobe, Simon has 20 plus years of experience leading product management and product marketing teams for brands such as Microsoft, Google, Nokia, and Skype. Simon is from the UK and has earned his undergraduate degree in physics from Loughborough University and his MBA from the London Business School. Hey, Simon, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, really good to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Good to see you again.
Hey, you have an amazing background in our industry and education from across the pond there, and a global executive. You know, Adobe is right smack in the middle of this digital innovation, this digital transformation. Let's call it a digital tsunami. What's on your mind regarding going digital, and what do you want to share with our audience here today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in the midst of this very unique situation where we're seeing this enormous acceleration of digitization. And I think, what's on my mind is, a few things. I mean, first of all, we continue to be focused on changing the world through digital experiences. That's Adobe's mission. That's what we're here to do. But what that really means is helping our customers change the world through digital experiences. And we really do that in three predominant ways. The first is with Creative Cloud, providing the creative tools that allow you to create the best content to help your business stand out. Secondly, through our Experience Cloud, allowing you to personalize digital experiences for your customers. And thirdly, through Document Cloud, where we really help businesses with their document productivity. Yeah, as a result, we're really just helping our customers get onboarded really quickly and to be able to serve their customers even better, maintain a very productive workforce at the same time. And so it's as much the what of what we provide our customers to be able to do, as well as the how. How does it feel to get work done in this remote working environment? And yeah, this is where things like collaboration become so important, and facilitating remote work. And that's where across Creative Cloud, Document Cloud, and Experience Cloud, we're really working not just on delivering these tools, but delivering them in a way that makes it seamless and easy to work together. Those are a few points.
Hey, Simon, you guys at Adobe really know what you're doing in digital, helping people through the whole customer journey.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, we really focus on two things, and we stay focused on those things. One, and top of mind is always, what is the customer experience? And how do we enable the best customer experiences? What do they need? And then really, what is the employee experience? How do we make the employees of the company more productive and help serve customers better? So, when it comes to customer centricity, nowadays more than ever, it's all about how do we make the content available where you need it, that it's personalized to exactly what you want, that it's engaging, but above all, easy to use and fast. And then on employees side, it's more about how do we make sure collaboration is built in from the very beginning? Work is very different, and we need to work with different tools than we used before. And so, how do we make sure that our tools are responsive to what the employee needs so they can focus on what the customer needs? And in particular, what that really comes back to is about digital. right? Everything has to be fundamentally digital, makes it easily to customize, easy to automate. But as part of that, it needs to be mobile first. It needs to be responsive to the environment that you're in. And as I mentioned before, also integrated into those applications that your business is using, because we all, as different businesses, are using many, many different applications. And so it has to work well with your business's workflow. And those are just some of the things that we think about across the different businesses that Adobe has to offer. And in particular, an example like, I'd love to bring up with TSB Bank in the UK and how they used Adobe XD and Adobe Sign to rapidly provide government loans to their customers within 36 hours of them becoming available. So this is taking software from our Creative Cloud suite and our Document Cloud suite and working beautifully together to create new forms, new experiences for customers that they can get live on their site that's providing a critical need to people in this COVID pandemic that allows them to get the support they need from the government so that they can keep their business moving. And it's just one example of how providing these tools and being able to do it in a super productive manner just allows businesses to keep moving. And that's really what we're trying to do.
You're doing it. Great job, Simon. I talk to CIOs and CTOs and CISOs all day long. And the one big concern is, what does the organization look like in this hybrid environment? And how can you help the organization in that hybrid environment?
Yeah, great question. I think, for us, it becomes, obviously, first and foremost is access to the right hardware, right? And then it's really about the right software that runs on that allows your employees to be as productive as they can be in that environment. And so for us, it's things like not just how well does Adobe's applications work, but how well do they work with the other line of business applications that you use in your business. So Microsoft, Office 365 suite or now M365 suite, how well do those things work together, and what are the workflows that we can work with across the organization? So it comes back to a lot of times integration. So I think what the CIOs really care about is how productive are those employees and how happy are they with that work? Are we allowing them to work effectively? And typically that is where work comes not in a silo or a vacuum around a particular application, but really in a workflow, not just individually, but with your team as well. And so I think, one of the things that we're focused on is how do we make sure that our software is working well with the other things that are running in the organization, that the CIOs are standing up. So again, another example of Adobe Sign deeply integrated into Microsoft Teams, which of course has been this bedrock and foundation, along with Zoom and other applications of this pandemic and remote work. You can now, or very soon in Q1, be able to do live signing through a Microsoft Teams call. So if you're a salesperson on a sales call, you'll be able to get that signature, the crucial signature you need to close a deal within your Microsoft Teams call with, to be able to verify someone's identity, to be able to capture key information, and then to be able to get a auditable trail of that signature throughout your Microsoft Teams history. That's just one example of just how, again, allowing workflows and thinking across the types of activities that employees need to do allows us, I think, to provide technology which is easier for CIOs to deploy and use in their organization. It speeds time to value, and it essentially makes people more productive and happy, because nobody likes, wasted work.
Anything else that you're hearing from your enterprise CIOs and CTOs in this pandemic that you'd find enlightening for the audience?
I think I've touched on, many of the things, but I think as the pandemic has gone on, it's really about keeping people motivated, because when you can't be with people every day, it's can be frustrating. It's been a long time now, 9 months. So I think in the beginning it was about providing the tools, and I think now it's much more about how do we create this sense of cohesion, of team, and this feeling of we're all in this together, even though we can't actually be together. And that's where I think even tools outside of the ones that Adobe provides become really important. It's the video applications, the chat applications, but as a manager, even just reaching out to your employees and checking in and finding out how they're doing. And I think I think that, we as a company are, again, not just focused on the what, but on the how. And how are people feeling? How are people doing? How is this affecting you? And of course, different people are affected in different ways at different times. And I think that's just a constant thing that we need to build into our day and into our practice.
Simon, I couldn't agree with you more. I think you're spot on right there. Hey, really appreciate your coming on the program today. We got the message through. It's very clear and succinct now. Thanks so much for your support and continued engagement.
Thank you very much, Hunter.
No worries. How can people get in touch with you or the right people at Adobe to begin a discussion?
I mean, LinkedIn is always a good place to start, but my email is longbot@adobe.com. So it's not the best email address, but longbott@adobe.com. So feel free to reach out to me, and I look forward to connecting with you. But again, thanks for your time.
Hey, Simon, great job. I really appreciate it.
You.
Brilliant. Take care.
Yes,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Thanks again. Next up, we have Jason Beer. Jason's the Senior Director of Data Strategy and Governance at Informatica. Hey, Jason, welcome to the program.
Great to be here, Hunter. Good to see you.
Likewise, again, right? Hey, we're going to talk about addressing the need for speed, rapidly delivering the right insights to the C-suite. What do you mean by all that?
Well, clearly the proliferation of data in every company has provided many opportunities for executives to get access to more information more quickly. But the downside of that, of course, is that sometimes there's too much information and it's hard to know what to focus on. So when we talk to our customers about how to make a strategy around how to get access to the most meaningful data, it really starts with understanding what the business goals of the organization are. And if you use that as the anchor, then everything else tends to flow from there. And the framework that we use around that when we talk to CIOs and CDOs is, what is the big business problem you're trying to solve? That if you could solve that problem, you would accelerate the success of your business. It's not about trying to solve every problem or answer every question that you may have, but focusing on the big ones that have the greatest impact to your business and really mapping that to your overall data strategy in terms of how you deliver success on an ongoing basis. Is getting away from point solutions that would tend to look at things in a more siloed manner on a function by function basis, customer service having its own view, sales having its own view, marketing, so on and so forth, and rather approaching it from a more holistic perspective that's anchored again to the experience you're trying to deliver to your customer.
Brilliant. I love it. So, given the concept of data being the new oil, what are the common things you're seeing across companies, across industry? And then do you talk about planning with the end in mind and working backwards, or creating a vision where you are now crawl, walk, run, and moving forward? Two very different approaches or philosophies.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I touched on one of the things that we see all of our customers talking about, which is customer experience and delivering a great customer experience as part of whatever industry that they're in. And that's true everywhere. And, in these days, pandemic, we're all working from home more. In some sense, we're all having more time to think about things we'd like to change, transform in our relationships with the vendors, the businesses that we use in our personal lives. And so you see that there's a greater emphasis on being able to get more done more quickly, more effectively. And there's less tolerance, I think, for consumers and individuals to work with companies that don't deliver a great customer experience. So a lot of that driver would start with that basic concept. And of course, there's always going to be and it's an important area, focus on regulatory issues, on compliance, on being able to run your business operations more effectively, more quickly, at a more cost-effective manner. But ultimately, when we talk to our customers, the common theme is how do we deliver a great customer experience across the board in a more consistent manner.
We touched on it previously with Simon. When you think about it, it really comes down to people, right? So in your view, what are the biggest challenges tech leaders face in building that customer-centric view around data and the strategy?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest issues in the work that I do at Informatica and some of the challenges that our customers face is not so much about the technology, it's about the people using the technology. So it's really about that siloed perspective that many times permeate business operations. And so again, it's about the work that people come in and do every day. Are they incented and encouraged, and do they have tools that support a holistic view of customer or the supply chain, or is that all happening within a silo? And so that kind of gets to the balanced scorecard, to use probably an overused term, but how are we assessing success across a variety of metrics and parts of the business?
When you think data governance is historically hasn't been very effective, right?
Yeah.
And it relatively offering a strategic view at the C level or the C-suite. You have something new. What do you focus on now?
Well, within the data governance space, whenever you're trying to, what we're trying to achieve there, I mean, data governance, it's kind of a dirty term in some industries. In many industries, I think it's gotten a bad rap from its original, days as a way to accelerate compliance, regulatory compliance. Obviously, that's the foundation of it. Regulated industries, banking, finance, healthcare. But what we think about with data governance now is it's really about how do you get access to the information you need more quickly and with greater confidence that it's going to solve the problems of your business. So it's really about defining what it is that you need and then discovering where it exists and then making sure that you've got a protocol in place to keep it that way, to make it fit for purpose for driving your business. So it's really a mind shift, if you will, away from thinking of governance as a cost center almost, and more to being a strategic enabler for your business.
It seems to me, Jason, you're really talking about a mind shift within the company and within IT to be really strategically wrapping your head around the desired goals and outcomes. What's the big project or initiative that you want to push forward, and then thinking backwards with the end in mind.
Exactly. And I would say, bolting onto that, making data governance and considerations around data governance not an afterthought, which it often has been in the design of systems, projects, applications, tools, and technology that we use, but making it more part of the proactive conversation. So starting with the end in mind, what do we expect this data to look like and to do for us on an ongoing basis? And how are we going to make sure that can be delivered?
In this really tough time we're in right now, innovation often comes from constraining resources. What have you learned from your clients as it relates to this crisis and taking advantage of it and getting things done that you wouldn't normally be able to get done if the crisis weren't there?
Yeah, well, it's obviously given a greater focus on priorities and making sure that we're doing only the most value-added things that are going to move the needle, that are going to impact the bottom line within the business. Many projects have been canceled, but many have been accelerated as well. And it's been really interesting to see how some of our customers have greatly pivoted their strategic plans, their strategies, their go-to-market in a way they probably weren't always constructed to do. Right. So having to figure out on the fly how to pivot resources away from what you thought were the priorities of your strategy towards areas and understanding exactly what is changing in our customers' lives that we need to be aware of and reacting to as they go through this pandemic. And so some of it is usage, some of it's behaviors, some of it is understanding preferences, events in their lives. Are they dealing with sick relatives? And do we have to be aware of that in terms of how we think about our interaction with that customer? So capturing that data and a lot of that streaming, ingestion, preferences information that's available on social, whatever it may be, but it gives you that view of your customer that then really focuses the lens on where the priorities should be.
Jason, we've been on this data journey forever, it seems. What's new and different today than just 1, 2, 3 years ago in terms of technology that's here now that wasn't here a year or two ago? 1, and 2, what's the difference between the companies that are winning and exceeding today with this new view looking forward and a data strategy that's really driving material results, and the companies that are just falling flat?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it's a great question, and there's probably a lot of answers to it. But the thing that comes up most often in our conversations with customers is a real focus on enabling their business through the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and it's on the tip of everyone's tongue, right? How do we do more of this repetitive work or gain more insights into our customers and what they're experiencing, into risk or resiliency issues within our supply chain through use of artificial intelligence? And what's the foundation for that? It's really data. It's really about having clean, governed, available information to feed that process. And the machines can do a lot of work, but we have to give them the good fuel in order to enable that to happen. And so when we talk to customers, it's all about how are we going to transform parts of our fundamental business processes to take advantage of that technology and allow our people to focus on the more strategic and value-added activities that they need to do.
Jason, how can people get started with you folks at Informatica? What does the first call or meeting look like?
Sure. Well, we do run a number of workshops in my team, and my group is called Advisory Services. We're a business consulting, strategic management consulting team within Informatica. We're very much focused on the kind of things we're talking about, helping our customers tease out what their strategic priorities are, how those map to a data strategy, and how they should get started with that. And again, if there's one thing that I hope that folks will take away from what we've talked about today, it's that the best companies do this in a holistic way. They do it with a strategic approach, and not through point solutions. And so our team can really help to focus around that. We do that through our workshop offerings, and we're happy to deliver those for any customers or potential customers that may be interested. And they can contact me at jbeard@informatica.com or go to the informatica.com website and seek us out that way.
Hey, great having you on the program. Thanks so much for the thought leadership and support and Informatica's engagement. Folks, please, when Informatica reaches out to you, take a meeting. This sounds like you're really onto something that's really solid.
Thanks a lot, Hunter. It was great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to speaking more soon.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Cheers. Bye now. Next up, we have Nancy Flores. Nancy's new in town. She's the EVP and CIO and CTO of McKesson Corporation. McKesson's got an amazing innovation story. Nancy, great to see you.
How are you, Hunter? Nice to see you.
Awesome. Always good to see you. Now, you have an interesting story about arriving in Dallas, several months ago and seeing Dallas or not seeing Dallas.
Yeah, I love COVID Dallas. I say I love it. I showed up 6 weeks before COVID happened in the country, shut down, and Europe shut down. And so, but so far it's been a great 10 months and COVID Dallas is great. So can't wait to see and meet a lot more people once we get past this.
Well, I know my friends at the Dallas-Fort Worth SIM chapter were wanting to hear from you, requested to hear from you, and they were really wanting to welcome you to the whole Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Thank you. I'm excited to meet them.
Hopefully in person soon. We'll make that happen. Hey, when you think about your journey, tell us a little bit about your background, kind of whatever you want to share with us in terms of, we're big on career and leadership here. Yeah. And providing inspiration or thought leadership on how one develops such a brilliant career. You've had a great career ascent.
Oh yeah, well, thank you. I think it's always, hindsight's always 20/20. I go back to two fundamental principles that actually my father taught me. Two things is his family. I'm half Mexican, so an immigrant from Mexico. But if you work hard, there will always be opportunity. And if you focus on education and learning, that's something that nobody can ever take away from you.
Oh, so, we lost you there. Are you there?
I'm back. Yeah, I don't know what. So those were two basic principles. But throughout my career, 30 plus years in the industry, started as a statistician, and two things that kind of drove me and advanced my career was just curiosity and always taking on the hard challenges. And so spent 22 years at Abbott, healthcare company in Chicago, and had the opportunity to really learn and grow in the tech space as the company grew, and launched one of its largest blockbuster drugs in the industry, Humira. Went through a number of acquisitions and learned a lot about how to apply technology with a lot of constraints where you had short periods of time to bring businesses together, break businesses apart. And then the opportunity to move into industrial manufacturing for Johnson Controls, and learned a lot about how IT and OT come together. And that's been an exciting space. And then arriving here at McKesson, really, which is probably so grateful as our industry is changing, as IT and OT become more mature, as cybersecurity becomes more prominent. The role of the CIO has evolved. It's no longer very specific to the enterprise. Technology is connected. The core infrastructure is now strategic. And so coming in as a CIO and a CTO to bring all that together is really exciting. But when you look at the progression of my career, it's really been taking opportunities that have been challenging and tough. And it's been building strong teams to help achieve those outcomes, and really great mentors and leaders that have helped me along the way.
Oh, really? How do you choose the right mentor or leader? I
tend to like mentors and leaders that think differently, that will challenge me. And the most important thing is that will call me out when I need to be called out on. It's great to always collaborate. It's great to have peers to call upon, but the most effective leaders and mentors for me have been when there's a leader that really challenges my thinking and really, you know, asking you the questions, is that really the right thing to do? Or is there something else going on there? So,
great stuff. Hey, you know, McKesson's an amazing company. It's I think it's a Fortune 678, right? And over 280 years old. And so, you know, a lot about innovation and M&A and growing and staying together and being vital. And, you know, what was it about the short and long-term goals in this role and the mission at McKesson that brought you to McKesson?
Oh yeah, you know, it's a great company, and as I learned about it, you know, I was in the healthcare industry for many years, and you viewed McKesson. It's kind of the silent giant, but they, over the course of healthcare, over the course of as industry has changed, they've been able to pivot, use technology, use operational excellence to really pivot and go after certain markets. I think what attracted me the most as I came into this role. Could not have predicted COVID, but as you looked at their business strategies, every business strategy in healthcare that we're going after is shaped by technology and data. So coming in, supporting technology, when you have a large company, you have the challenge of the old technology that's supported and still supports 90% of how the company operates. You have critical business strategies that are key to it being successful going forward. So that's the exciting thing that drew me to this role, is how you bring that together and how you accelerate those future strategies.
When it comes to your work, what is your why?
Why I get making a difference. I love. I left the healthcare industry for a couple of years, but I do love being in a company that makes a difference in terms of healthcare. I'd love to help my organization remove barriers, help them understand where they need to go. But my why is really, I'd love to be in the healthcare space, and being part of this mission right now is terrific.
Love it. And you were instrumental in helping us stage our first ever Women in Technology Summit recently. It was a brilliant summit, 400 people registered, 350 people showed up. You know, when you think about women, what is the biggest barrier for women to succeed in leading into the C-suite, I guess, right?
You know, it's interesting. We've been talking a lot about it. I think there's two things that are coming out. There's been some recent studies that have shown that even through COVID, there has been a large exit of women in the C-suite. So there is still a disproportionate responsibility that women take on in terms of family and career. So that's one continued driver. But when I look at women's barriers, there's two things that I think make a difference. And one is our own internal ability to have the courage to be who we are when we're the only one in the room, or we're one of the few in the room. So I would encourage every woman to believe in themselves and have the confidence to show up as you are, and to show up as authentically as you are. Because if you're already in the C-suite, if you're already a leader, chances are your smarts, how you executed and what you do is what got you there. And that's all you need to do. I think the second thing is really a broader problem we as a community can solve. And it's really how do not just females, but males support women. Some of the best mentors I've had in leaders have been male leaders that have helped me work through my own anxiety of wanting to do well in an environment where I was the only female, and giving me the confidence that it's okay. You don't have to be better than them. You just have to be with them, or, you know, it's okay to go home and take care of your family because that's a priority right now. So that would be how I look at that. And I think if we can just keep doing that, we will all move forward.
I totally agree with the courage idea. It's a theme we've been talking about now for 9 or 10 months here in the pandemic. You know, when you think about it, the classic consulting phrase, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, vaccine distribution. Actually, I'm so humbled and grateful to walk into a company that has taken on that responsibility. I have a terrific organization, but what keeps me up at night is we've had to scale significantly a pretty complex supply chain and distribution network. So operationalization of those systems and the cybersecurity threat, those are both real, and we talk about them every day. We have a lot of great partnership with the government. Some of our key partners, SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, NTT Data, they've been tremendous partners to rally around what keeps me up at night.
You really know in this environment who your partners are and who your vendors are, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I have to tell you, what's been great to see around this is this common outcome. Everybody has come to the table really ready to collaborate. And we've done some great things in a pretty short amount of time.
Awesome. Any final comments on your leadership style, maybe?
Am I? You know, I get asked that a lot, and I think I do my best to be supportive and a leader that assures as an organization we're focused and we know where we're going. I would just tell you that my teams in the past have described me as a trainer. So if you're training for a marathon, there are some days you go out and you train, you love it, it's great, it's motivating. There are other days you go out and you train and you don't want to train. And sometimes you have to coach them and you have to encourage them. But that tends to be my leadership style, is to drive clarity, focus, and help my team achieve the outcome our mission that we're trying to go after.
Excellent. Hey, Nancy, thanks so much for coming on the summit, the program, and you're going to stay with us for the next panel coming up here, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Glad
Great.
to be in Dallas. Thank you.
Good to see you. Hey, next up, helping me co-lead the panel is Patricia Connolly, the CEO and founding partner of SMC Squared. Patricia, great to see you.
Nice to see you, Hunter.
Looking forward to this panel very much. Why don't we introduce the panel? Do you want to introduce Mary first off?
Sure. Mary Von Arnhem is joining us. She is representing Fossil right here from Dallas, Texas, and we have an incredible story with Mary.
Excellent. And I'll introduce Rusty Kennington. Most everyone knows Rusty in the Texas area. Rusty's a great fan and friend of HMG, the CIO of the Henry Company, and John Repko, the EVP and CIO of AIG. Hey, welcome everyone.
I'll be here.
Pat, you want to kind of kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, everybody. Let's start with a little perspective building from our panelists on what they've experienced this year. Nancy, I'm going to come back to you, and thanks for all your comments. That was super interesting. Thinking about McKesson and what a tremendous story and journey that the company has been on this year, what have your business leaders changed in their view of technology through this pandemic?
I have to be the first one to answer. I think we all would agree that it's changed the perspective. Actually, you know, I think there has been a different level of appreciation on the infrastructure and the technology required to run a business. One of the things that we talk about is continuity. You know, we always make decisions as CIOs, we make decisions around constraints and funding and budgets. And as we're going into planning for next year, it's a different attention and different focus where the robustness of some of our systems is changing our discussion. So they have a different appreciation. I think the second thing is our ability to pivot pretty quickly. They were quite impressed. And so I'm sure my peers would say the same thing.
Yeah, coming off that comment about pivoting, I was wondering if you would share a little bit about what you've put in place that you might reflect on that's really worked well, and also if there are learnings from things that perhaps weren't such a good idea.
Oh gosh, I would say, and it is actually a reflection coming into this role where nobody could have predicted this pandemic. And, you know, as you drive digitization, a lot of the focus to scale is around building new capabilities. One of the things that I've learned from my past, it was critical for us to be able to scale fast, but what was even more critical was the depth of knowledge of some of our longstanding tech employees that not only had an appreciation for how the business ran, but they also knew some of the older and the newer technology that came together. So if there was a learning, as you drive transformation, I've done a number of outsourcing, managed services, building different capabilities. I think I've really learned to appreciate it's a critical balance between building new capabilities around digital, but those fundamental legacy capabilities that are core to run 90% of the business, we operate on legacy technologies, is probably one of the newer appreciations I have.
Excellent. So next up is John. Hey, John, John Repko from AIG. Good to see you, John. Any familiar themes you're hearing here?
I tend to agree with Nancy. I think leadership across all our companies has a whole new appreciation for how complex our lives were and how dependent we were on that technology. So I've seen the same thing. And I would say one other thing that I've seen is during these times of a pandemic, boy, we can make decisions quick. And it almost has me thinking about why we couldn't make decisions this quick outside of a C-19 situation. So I hope that one sticks.
Makes sense, right? Did you notice any change, John, in your leadership style?
I would tell you that when you're managing your entire workforce remotely during a pandemic, you figure out what's important real quick. And there's just no time for fluff. It's really just been focused on the mission, as Nancy says, and just heads down. And that's how we're surviving.
And then the scale that you're operating on, John, is pretty awesome, right? What, 60, 70, 80 countries global?
80 countries, yeah.
Yeah, how big? How do you describe it publicly?
The more we get out of the United States, the more complex it is for us. It's interesting watching the different countries and the different regulators in insurance and how they're reacting to COVID and so forth. So it's fun for the whole family, Hunter, on a given day. It's complex.
Got it. Hey, John, great to see you. We'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey,
You bet.
next up is Rusty Kennington. Rusty, my understanding is that you're in the middle of a shift in the middle of the year. You shifted roles, you shifted companies.
I did. Yeah, I switched horses midstream against everyone else's advice, but it's been great. Kind of a tale of two companies in ways, very similar in terms of size. The previous company we had already taken through a digital transformation, and I've got the ability to do that again here with Henry Company. I really like what Nancy said earlier. Totally agree. It's all about building a great team. So that's what I'm really excited about, is doing that here.
Really comes down to people, doesn't it? And getting engaging people. Recently, I was talking to a global CIO this morning, and they're really concerned in this hybrid work environment, how best to keep people engaged.
It's you're right. I think individually we've all gotten used to the video calls. The odd thing for me is the only person I've met in 3 dimensions is my boss, the CEO, because I interviewed with him before COVID, and so trying to really figure out what makes them all tick. We're in different states, some in Texas, some in Pennsylvania, some in California. So it's, but it's something that I'm really, really focusing on, because like you said, that's where it all starts. That's where it all matters.
Hey, when you interviewed for this new role, they interviewed you, knowing you interviewed them and the fit to make sure you got along with the CEO, the C-suite, and the board. How did that go down? What did that look like? And what are they expecting you to deliver in this new role?
It was pretty intensive series of interviews, one of which was a 6-hour interview that went all the way back to my childhood. I was sure they were going to come up with skeletons that was going to give me a no, but you can see how carefully this CEO crafted this leadership team. And then now being a part of it, in spite of the fact that he's the only one that I've met, the team just gets along just incredibly well. Everyone's authentic. It's really good. And so, my mission now is to really establish credibility quickly, and kind of lay in track while the train's running, so that I can both really assess my team, add where I need to add, and I do need to add, but I can really leverage the talent that I've got, but then also show what the new mousetrap looks like to leaders across our business.
Hey, Rusty, what do you do for inspiration or courage when you have to dig down deep and do something that you don't really want to do, but it has to be done because it's the right thing to do? Where do you get your courage strength?
To me, whether it's courage or not, Nate's talked about what her father taught her. My father taught me there's no gray, black and white. I've always known and taught my kids, between choosing the easy thing and the right thing, you always do the right thing. And so to me, it's black and white. I just do it. I go forth. Been on this planet long enough to know that I'm not always right. I welcome the input. And so I give it everything I can and expect feedback and welcome feedback.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. Love it. We'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, Mary, next up, you're up next up. You were formerly the Senior Vice President CIO of Fossil, right?
I was.
Hey, and you ran into some challenges with the C-suite, probably the strategy, the business technology strategy and the roadmap. What kind of lay out the whole scenario for us?
Yeah, my tenure as CIO there, we were facing really heavy sales losses. And of course, whenever there are sales losses, there's huge cost pressure. And I had inherited a really kludgy network of systems. So driving costs down was very difficult. We were fully outsourced as well. And we were chasing new business models. I mean, if you can believe it, this sounds so old school now, but Amazon had come in full force. And a lot of the marketplaces that we were trying to keep up with, completely different technology play. And working with an outsourcer, there was bureaucracy. There were work orders to be filled out. There were estimates to be had, and it was hard to keep up.
So what was the solution?
I met Pat and Steven actually through a colleague on my team, and they ran a company that helped with building a gig. And so we got very intrigued with this idea of having a team in India that was our own employees. And I think our need for SMC squared became really screamingly obvious as we tried to build this little team and treat them like an outsourcer. Couldn't be more far from the truth. So what we learned was that when you build your own team, you have to treat them as team members. You know, the theme of, I think, all the panelists that I've heard so far is team and hanging together. And so we learned a new structure. We learned how to structure a gig in India. We learned how to recruit for a gig in India, which was completely different than, you know, all the countries that we had done business in. SMC squared led us through that. I think one of the most valuable lessons we learned, which we would never have figured out, I think, on our own if we'd not had guidance, was the culture of India. What motivates workforces in India? And what motivates them is inclusion and challenging work. And of course, having been used to working with our outsourcer, we just tasked out everything. We just gave them little pieces of work and they did their best to the best of their ability. With our new gig, we had to treat them as the really incredibly intelligent individuals they were and give them chunks of work that they could sink their teeth into. So that was a big change to us. Another thing that SMC squared really helped us through was that we had been used to having on-site point people for our outsourcer. And all of a sudden, we had this team in India that we had to interface with directly. So getting the work done wasn't about telling somebody that was sitting in a cube from us that didn't even work for us. It was really about pulling the team together and accomplishing the mission and working out the architectural situations together. So we were very thrilled to have SMC squared guide us. And the mission was very successful. I mean, I would tell anyone who is considering this move, we saved roughly 30%. But the really greater value to us was the talent. Our outsourcer had constant turnover, so we were always dealing with people who didn't really know our systems. We had very low turnover in our gig, and the level of talent was equal to any of our several IT systems around the world.
Excellent. Thanks, Mary. Pat?
You know, thanks, Mary. It was really an exciting journey to work with Fossil, and I'm really happy that we were able to help you not only with your vision, but also executing on a strategy that was able to save you quite a bit in terms of costs, real costs. So thanks for your comments.
Excellent. Hey, Rusty, I understand you did some work with SMC squared too as well in your former company.
Yeah, you know, we talked about the need for talent. They helped me for 3 years at Corsicana. So I don't know how many hours or days I was employed at Henry before I gave Pat a call. And then we launched a team to start working on this digital customer experience for us. So I bet my success on it. Awesome. And we'll do it again.
Great stuff. You know, hey, Nancy and John, you know, thinking about this new environment we're in, right? It's going to be for a while more, I think. Could be 6, 12 months more, unfortunately. Started to bring the obvious news. What's the best way to keep people engaged? You know, particularly when you're dealing with a global organization or a large footprint in North America. Nancy, you want to kind of dial in? What's your magic formula?
Yeah, it's actually an ongoing discussion we have at the executive level in terms of return to work. One of the great cultures about McKesson is we have a process where we survey our employees, and our employees actually 90% of our employees respond and give us feedback. So some of the things we've done, we've tried to leverage the virtual landscape, but similar to, I'm not sure, I think somebody had mentioned it, everybody is challenged with different anxiety personally, whether it's they have children at home that they have to homeschool, or they have parents, or they have different risk spectrums. So we've actually implemented a policy called Flex Your Day. And so what we've tried to do is not only from a digital tools, we've given our teams flexibility to work in different ways, but we've also allowed our employees to do what's called Flex Your Day, where if you need to take time during the day out to get things done and then come back and work at a different time, it's something we're encouraging as a culture, and that's gone very well. We've also tried to socialize virtually. It gets very hard. I think all of us will share it gets hard to be on Zoom calls in very sequential manners. So we've done fun things of having happy hours where we do trivia. We did we played Jeopardy the other day. We did a Halloween musical to our organization, wishing them happy Halloween, and we try to do that and break up. We've done bingo, and so those are some things just to try to bring the concept of the water cooler back into the environment virtually. But it's not easy. It's not easy. So those are some things we've tried to do.
Excellent stuff. John, you want to comment?
We've had great success with a global survey as well, but personally, with 5,000 IT people in 110 locations in 38 countries during such a troubled time, I went back to an old-fashioned tool called the skip level, and I'm doing 3 to 4 skip levels each and every week. I've done 90 so far, and this is just a constant two-way communication from me to the levels of the organization. And it's while it's a little bit old-fashioned, it works really, really well. And I also keep in touch with the associates, 40 to 50 texts a week, just answering questions, pointing people in the right direction, even people bringing issues to me about so-and-so has an issue and they need some help.
Great stuff. Great stuff. No doubt it takes a high, strong leadership style, more empathy, the whole IQ or EQ kind of equation.
Absolutely. To lead in a time like this, it really needs to, you bring out your EQ. IT is a people business, it's people based, and a lot of people are stressed. So we used the word empathy earlier, but empathy needs to be part of our toolbox for sure.
Interesting times. Pat?
Yeah, so I'd love to go around the panel, kind of pass the mic one more time and ask a couple quick questions just to get some kind of on the spot ideas and perspectives. So what advice would you give to CIOs based on everything you've lived through this year? And have you found any silver linings you'd like to share? So Nancy, I'll start with you.
Boy, silver linings for this year. I think, and actually John said this, and it's don't settle. There's if you can get a rallying cry, around a common outcome, it's amazing what it can do. I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is take care of your people. We are all moving in an environment where there's anxiety we may not see. Take care of your people, make sure they're getting the rest, they're taking their PTO, and they will do amazing things. But to me, that's the silver lining is it's amazing to be able to walk into a new company and see how quickly that team has been able to pivot, and they've just done some things that are just incredible, and so proud of them.
Love it. Thank you. Mary, how about you?
The silver lining in all this actually has become the patience that people have with each other. There's an expression, nothing unites like a common enemy. And I think we are all so aware of COVID, and it has become kind of our common enemy, and people are realizing how much anxiety everyone is under. And so the patience level, the Zoom calls and how frustrating they can get, the need to be on this kind of technology all the time and not have the water cooler conversations. I've just seen such a warmth and such a different level of teamwork come through that's been really heartening to see.
That's wonderful. Thank you. John, any comments?
Sure. Advice for CIOs, speed matters. So be collaborative, get input from others, but make the calls. We have no time for anything other than making the calls and move forward. Silver lining, recruiting. C19 has kind of opened up the world. In the past, we would force certain skill sets and certain technologies into certain cities. That's old fashioned. I think the new normal is going to be a hybrid environment, and CIOs can recruit from all over. So I'd take advantage of that immediately.
Very good. Thank you. And Rusty, you want to wrap it up for us?
Sure. I agree with everything you've heard. I think my advice would be really focus on taking care of your people. And I think I've learned to be more intentional about giving them the time and me saying where they don't have to ask for the help. I think it's really wise to just assume you don't see everything that's going on. So I really like that. And in terms of silver lining, I think we've all seen, what it's like, how much we can as teams, as companies get done when you don't let unnecessary BS get in the way, when you have to. And I think we're going to continue to have to long past COVID. So that'd be my silver lining.
Hey, Pat, we have a few more minutes here. I'd like to go do one more round of questions.
Sure.
Think about this, it's again, classic thing in innovation. You constrain resources. People begin to think creatively, and we find innovation, right? And John, agree with you 100%. Speed is key. Given the crisis, the silver lining and how you leaned into your organization, you led your team and led into the C-suite in the line of business. Other insights. Nancy, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it's true. Constraints drive innovation, and actually, as we drove to pivot for COVID, we had what I would call 3 chapters. The first chapter was probably similar to many companies of just shifting to getting everybody to work remotely. Innovation came there is where we had specialty customer services that had very special technology to manage some of the managed care for cancer patients. It was amazing how creative we got to get monitors to those individuals. The second chapter was about PPE. Everybody knows the country had a shortage in PPE, and the ability to forecast exactly where they needed to go at a specific time was very hard to do. Overnight, we were able to apply a whole new allocation methodology so that every commercial rep that provided medical supplies could dynamically reallocate PPE within their territory in order to give it to a nursing home or a hospital in immediate need. And then the last one has been some of the amazing innovation. We have a lot of data around our supply chain. Our data and analytics team took the opportunity to start to get insights, to start to forecast what we started to see across the supply chain to help our business proactively anticipate demand shifts that we have never seen before because of COVID. So those are some things, just examples where, when you have a team, and it's amazing to see what a crisis can make them do. But that innovation came out pretty clearly with the team.
It sounds exciting. What about the idea of inside of IT now, a core competency around invention or innovation that's just core to everything you do?
It's actually, it goes back to, I think, what Rusty and John have said is, the sense of urgency, moving past a lot of the bureaucracy. It's almost given the organization the confidence that they can do this. And when they partner with some key suppliers, we've had great support from Salesforce, from SAP, from NTT. It's amazing how that innovation mind just starts. And I think that's one of the biggest silver linings coming out of COVID.
My good friend Chris Gates, will be up on a later panel here, said early on, let's just go lead boldly and be unapologetic and just make things happen. Right? Hey, Mary, thoughts when you look back at your time in our industry, anything you want to share?
one of the things that just even in my current life that's happened is that COVID has really empowered all levels of the organization. So just back to the theme of speed, people aren't as worried about having to get every single thing approved up the chain and down the chain and the papers and the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So I think that's been, even in my experience now where I am, that's been really incredible. And I also think that the bureaucracy that exists in any big company has had to be shifted because we are in a need for speed. So some of the things that we used to think were so important have suddenly become not so important as we make decisions quickly and move ahead as fast as we can.
Excellent stuff. Rusty, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think one of the things I really have chanted for a while now, and I think it's really a lot of people saying it, don't let perfect get in the way of progress. You know, I think the ability to deal with ambiguity was there long before COVID, but I think we've broken a lot of chains and shackles elsewhere throughout the organization, and some old thinking that you're it's okay to take some chances, to your point earlier, Hunter. And I think that's really the mission I'm on. I'm really one about looking forward. I don't necessarily put a whole lot into the history of why this program works that way. It doesn't matter. You know, what do we need it to do? And let's move forward, because you consume weeks and weeks just explaining the history of why something worked that way. So get out of the way of that, move forward, and course correct as you need to.
Hey, Rusty, what does winning look like for you in this environment right now?
Skins on the wall for me. I mean, it's making a difference. You know, right now, credibility is what I've got to build, and credibility is not something you talk to, it's something you show. And so differentiating our customer experience, differentiating the internal experience with data, all this transformation that we're embarking on right now. Nothing else matters.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Rusty. Great to see you. John, what does winning look like for you in your current environment?
It's all about operations. You know, I would say from the day we made the call on March 11th to go remote globally, you know, we too had to blow up bureaucracy, just like one of the other panelists had mentioned. The IT team and the operations team just said, we're going to do this. We're going to do it in a week and a half. There were many naysayers, many folks who just had to get out of the way, quite frankly, and we pulled it off. So winning is maintaining that operational excellence.
And how do you keep that edge now as we move into the hybrid environment and the sense of a crisis urgency is kind of alleviated a bit? I would imagine. How do you keep that organization performing at that high level?
I think COVID's doing a great job of keeping us focused with this third chapter now, with the economic outcomes. There's plenty of challenges ahead, Hunter, that are going to keep us all focused.
Thanks, John. Great job. Hey, Nancy, final word.
I love Dallas.
There we go. Thank you.
Excited to be here. I think Dallas has some great tech talent, and I look forward to being part of the community.
Awesome. Great job. Nancy, Mary, Rusty, John, Pat, great job. Pat, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is very interesting. Appreciate everybody's comments.
Excellent. Guys, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Happy holidays. Looking forward to seeing you again in the new year.
Thank you, Hunter.
Super. And next up, we have Trevor Schultz, the Senior Vice President, CIO of Ring Central. Trevor, great to see you.
Hey, Hunter. Great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, so the title of this fireside chat is Change to Win, and the next phase is Good to Go. What is that all about?
Well, I think there's a lot of discussion going on right now about what's next. I think over the last couple quarters, people have been talking about now and the change that they have to enact now. And I'm more interested in where we have to go next, what the business is asking for us, and what a lot of people are calling new normal, next normal, give it a name.
Sure, makes sense, a lot of sense. You often talk about the systems of experience. Mm-hmm. You need to find what that means, and why is that relevant and importance to the enterprise CIO and tech leader?
So I think this is a new category in my mind. I think everyone is searching for what matters and how they affect businesses going forward. And I think everyone is sort of heard the systems of record, they've heard systems of engagement, and now I'm suggesting a new category called systems of experience. This is a new and next evolution of those concepts. And I think it's important for digital leaders to grasp this trend. And the way I've been looking at this and the way I've been speaking to other digital leaders is, we're in this service economy. And the service economy up to this point has been analog, and now it's digital. People have been giving it a name, digital transformation and whatnot. And this whole environment we're in has accelerated these systems of experience. And these are digital platforms that deliver mass service at scale. And if you give it some words, what defines a systems of experience? It's something that's hyper individualized, it's immersive, it's communal, it's enduring. You hear people use concepts like omni-channel, but most important is that it's simple and intelligent. And it's driving, I think, a lot of the megatrends that are out there right now.
When you think of it, the platform wins, right? The ecosystem wins. And you think of the companies that really master that, they're just dominating in their categories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can look at examples of what I'm categorizing as systems experience. Think of like how healthcare is changing, telehealth. Think about how people who are looking at working out differently, like Peloton. People who are looking for new shopping experiences, things like Stitch Fix and M. Taylor. You can go category after category. And what you're seeing are digital leaders who are grasping the systems of experience concept, and they're applying it to revenue, they're applying it to customer experience, they're applying it to employee experience. And we at RingCentral believe that this huge shift around business communications is also a systems of experience, and it's one that's tied towards the employee.
You guys are hitting on all cylinders right now in terms of revenue, customer experience, and employee experience. Talk to us a little bit more about what are you seeing? So
I think all three tie. When I'm out talking to executives in terms of what is going on, where are they going, what matters, first and foremost, people are talking about the employee. How we have people who are going to be able to work from anywhere. How are we going to attract talent in this new blended, flexible, hybrid work model? So if you're hiring the best, you have the talent that's looking for this flexibility, you create this seamless employee experience. People who can work from anywhere, have digital assets like RingCentral and others help enable them. And then if you have an employee that's engaged and it has this seamless environment to collaborate with anyone, anywhere, anytime, it also helps with your customer experience. Like that engaged employee now can engage in the customer, who, by the way, the customers are demanding an experience with a brand. And so, all those things I talked about earlier drive that new customer experience. And then, so you've got the employees driving the customer, and then ultimately it drives revenue. I mean, the companies that are going to win in the normal that's ahead of us are the ones who are truly grasping what it means to create that truly mass service experience for the employee, for the customer, which drives the brand.
Brilliant stuff, Trevor. Really great thought leadership there. Now, what kind of leadership skills does a CIO need today and into the future to drive this complete, holistic, I'll call it, ecosystem of thinking?
Yeah, I'm out there a lot talking about just, you have to tear up the playbook. You have to think differently. Everyone keeps saying that, but I truly think that what's happened over the last 6 months has driven a hyper growth, hyper acceleration of what people are looking for out of companies. Things that seemed impossible to get done in a year happened overnight. And so you have to be a leader that's continuously learning. You have to be a leader that's willing to look at innovation differently. And you have to really understand what your employees need, what your customers need. You have to stop thinking about personas, and you have to stop thinking about, classic thinking here. I truly believe that the companies that win are already moving, and it takes digital leaders to actually, lean into this new environment.
I totally agree with you on this piece. I think CIO and the tech leader needs to lead differently, think differently, lead courageously, lead authentically, lead passionately, and really rewrite the rules on and how the CIO, the tech leader, engages with the board, the C-suite, the line of business. What other kind of piece of advice would you give us, a tech leader now today, trying to think completely different and rethinking their leadership style?
Oh yeah, I love this question, Hunter. I just want to turn this on its head. People have been talking about IT business alignment, IT business integration, IT getting on the same page with the business. I don't think CIOs they shouldn't be focused on getting on the same page with the C-suite. And what I mean by that is that they need to rewrite the book. They need to collaborate in writing this new book about convergence of all things: technology, people, process, data. They shouldn't be trying to understand, they should be leading. And it's such a mindset shift. And if you don't have this courage to take that mindset shift, your competitors will. And we at RingCentral believe that we need to rewrite the book. We need to rewrite the what is happening in unified communications and collaboration. And that's where people are going to emerge out of this environment we're in right now as true winners, as true leaders of winning brands and winning companies.
I love the idea. What does winning really look like then in its fullest form?
Winning means that you've created a beautiful experience for your employees, that you've created an exceptional new level of experience for your customers. And those are driving new revenue streams, new ideas. I mean, people are coming to brands now and saying, I want to connect. And I want it to be intelligent. I want it to know who I am. I don't want to have to tell it that. Our employees are saying that. Our customers are saying that. And this is a whole brand new way of thinking. So that's what I go back to: systems of experience. This isn't about creating fancy new workflow. This isn't about creating, buying the right thing. This is about thinking differently about where things are going in the coming years. And I challenge everyone to start thinking about, it doesn't matter if you're in healthcare, it doesn't matter if you're in manufacturing, every single vertical, every single digital leader in every vertical has to be thinking about systems of experience. And I'm super thrilled about this concept, and it's really catching steam.
So systems of experience, at the end of the day, it comes down to people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I engage and want to buy something, I want it to know me. I want it to actually, help me and guide me, and stop having me be the one to have to search for it, because there's unlimited things that can happen in this environment. And, I think that this is just a category that's going to emerge, regardless if I give it a name or not. Digital leaders have to change their thinking. They have to really push themselves to go after this type of concept. This is the core of how people are driving their businesses. And this is where the winners are going to emerge.
Let's talk a little bit about what's uniquely different about RingCentral.
I'm just so blessed. I work at a company where I am in the future. People want to see business communications get simpler. They want it to be seamless. They want it to be reliable. They don't want to have to think about it anymore. They don't want to have to flip between a bunch of different apps, and they want to work from anywhere. It's got to be, it works from anywhere on any mode that if I choose. We at RingCentral believe that all of this needs to come together, and we're living in the future right now.
That truly is unique. And you must be working with all sorts of companies across industry and all sizes, right?
All sizes. I mean, we work from the small office, home office, all the way up to the Fortune 50. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're a company that was born in the phone, and we've moved into video this year. Fortunately, with everything going on, that played out well. And messaging. Most people don't know that we also have a messaging platform. So, and it all works in one app. I mean, I can flip between all three and not have to change a screen. And I know that seems like, okay, does that make sense? We're the only people who do it. And by the way, we're open. We have an open platform that allows you to integrate your current workflow into our platform. We are not a walled garden. We believe that the communications and workflow of a company should be everywhere. But we also believe that a tight integration to a platform like ours just makes the employee experience better.
Hey, Trevor, I understand people can learn more about RingCentral in the HMG marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a look at the marketplace. I love what you've built there, Hunter. RingCentral's there, easy to find us.
Great to see you, Trevor. Talk soon.
Absolutely, Hunter. Always a pleasure, man. Great to see you.
Great interview with Trevor Schultz. Really a fascinating company. Check out Ring Central, a great partner and friend of HMG Strategy with that unified communications platform. Next up, we have Alan Terletto. He's the field CTO of Redis Labs. Redis Labs may be a company that's not on your radar screen, but should be and needs to be. Digital first, learning from the pandemic to succeed beyond it. Hey, Alan, good to see you.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks, Hunter.
Tell us a little bit about Redis Labs and why do you all matter now? I'm really intrigued by your company.
Absolutely. We've been here for a while. So let me tell you about Redis Labs. Redis Labs is what we call the home of Redis. And Redis is a NoSQL multi-model in-memory database. And so it's ranked by DB Engines as the #7 most popular database. So think of IBM DB2, think of Oracle, you think of Redis. And why that's important for technology leaders, especially today, is because Redis is actually likely in your enterprise, whether that's the open source version or whether that's the Redis Labs enterprise version. And what you're getting with the enterprise version is you're getting the most secure Redis distribution out there. You're also getting business continuity. This is really important for a lot of our mission critical customers that have potentially, they want to deploy active-actively across multiple geographic locations for business continuity. You're also getting best-in-class performance. So we're talking about sub-millisecond level at digital scale. So that's hundreds or potentially more of thousands of operations per second. And you're getting cloud-native technology. So we were actually a company that started 9 years ago, Hunter, as a database as a service, which back then was kind of insane. But we took all that know-how and in today's cloud world are really well positioned to succeed. So today, we actually have first-tier marketplace offerings, partnerships with both Microsoft Azure and GCP. We also have a partnership with AWS. But you can also deploy us as hybrid between the cloud and the premise environment, on-prem environment. You could deploy us on your PaaS. Think about OpenShift or Pivotal or just Kubernetes, or even on your VM or bare metal. And why that's important for technology leaders is because it future-proofs your enterprise roadmap. So maybe you're not yet on the cloud, but you're thinking about it, or you're thinking about what happens beyond that. You could be rest assured that this technology is going to fit your digital applications and it's going to fit your enterprise as you grow into it. So it's a super exciting time to be with Redis Labs. We just got our Series F funding. So that gave us kind of that unicorn status, $1 billion+ valuation. It's super exciting. We're going to invest that back into the open source community. We're going to invest that back into our products and services to continue to grow our customer base and continue to deliver great services for our customers.
Congratulations on that last funding, and congratulations on being a unicorn. That's a rarefied air. You're in the right spot.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, Alan, across industry, you guys have a great play. What size enterprise do you work well with? And what's the issue that you're solving? And then what are some logos or some companies that you're doing great work with right now?
Yeah, so let me tell you, I have a kind of a broad perspective here, right? Because we work with so many different industries and different levels of organizations, and kind of we're watching to see how they react to this pandemic. So let me kind of tell you what that looks like, and I'll give you some examples, real world examples. So I kind of, to simplify things, bucket things into kind of 3 tiers. And you really, if you want to classify those tiers, it's really across, where you are in your digital transformation journey, or maybe your digital data strategy. So that 3rd tier, that furthest along on that journey, you could think about like an Amazon e-commerce, you could think about like a Robinhood from a fintech perspective. And, for them, the pandemic really presented an opportunity. It was just their digital channels, which are well established, just shot up in terms of demand. And for them, it was just an investment play to make sure they meet the customer where they are. On the lower side of that tiered model is really kind of the laggards, the one that didn't get to the cloud yet, the ones that didn't really get far along in the digital transformation strategy. Investing during the pandemic really wouldn't get them to where they needed to be. So they kind of went to this bunker mentality of really kind of looking at their portfolio and saying, do we need these stores? Do we need to restructure and potentially lay off? Do we need to look at our technology stack and make some tough decisions? But the most interesting tier is really those mid-sized players. And that's really where our customer base is. For them, they had to make much more, non-rhetorical decisions. Do we kind of try to weather this pandemic and kind of wait it out? If you think about back to April, it wasn't exactly clear what the impact of this pandemic would be on the economy and also how long it would last. Or do we want to invest? Do we look at Netflix? Do we look at Zoom? Do we look at Amazon as these models? Because we know that the world is heading into this, digital first world. And this is just an accelerant on the momentum that's already been building. And when you look at it from a cross industry point of view, that decision wasn't made uniformly if you think about it from a timescale perspective. So let me give you some examples. If you're in the e-learning or you're in the gaming industry, think about streaming industry, then right away you started investing. It just made sense. That's where the demand was going. So even if you didn't have potentially your grocer and you didn't have that app, you were probably investing in creating one. But if you're a retailer, it wasn't as trivial of a decision. A lot of them actually kind of hunkered down. They continued their business projects, but they really weren't overly investing. They were kind of waiting it out to see what happened. And once they realized that their brick and mortars were probably going to be shut down for the foreseeable future, they needed to invest heavily into e-commerce. That was right before that Black Friday normal cycle we see preparation. They started to overly invest into Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And the ones that did really saw a lot of success. And then there was some industries we work in where like the healthcare that really had to be kind of pulled into this. So you think about healthcare, they were kind of dinged up early on. There's a lot of claims coming in for the insurers. They were basically pre-approving everything. That's going to affect your bottom line. And pre-pandemic, they really weren't overly investing in the cloud. They were really kind of still focused on their legacy, really complicated, integrated environments, and really still focused on investment there. But the pandemic forced them with telehealth and these new digital apps to think about and make much more agile decisions about maybe we do have to kind of transition into this digital first world. So I'll give you a real world example. So Dick's Sporting Goods, right? This is a major retailer. I'm sure a lot of the audience has heard of them before. This is a customer of ours. So their story is actually in CIO magazine, and they'll be talking with me at NRF. So if you want to hear the full story from them, I'll give you the cliff notes real quick. They were that mid-tier player that was kind of a little further along in their data strategy. And they had to make a really quick pivot with their buy online, purchase in-store, omni-channel strategy. And what they did was they switched over to curbside delivery. And that was a fantastic decision for them. And they were able to make it really quickly. If you think about a regular Dick's Sporting Goods consumer, they wanted to get that workout equipment and they wanted to bring it home, but they wanted to do it safely. And Dick's was able to pivot quickly and meet the customer where they needed to be, which in this case was in their car outside of their store, really using their stores as a distribution hub. And they did really well during the pandemic. You could see kind of through their stock, they exceeded market expectations and really shot up. And we were obviously happy to be a small part of that success.
Exciting time, right? When you think about during this period, digital transformations were kicked into high gear, accelerating migrations to the cloud. From your experience, did this impact Redis Labs?
Yeah, absolutely. We were really well positioned, and I think it's really going to impact the database industry as a whole, especially for you technology leaders out there. The patterns that we see, there's an overarching theme here about business agility and being able to pivot and being able to react. So even that comes down to your choices around technology. I'll give you an example and kind of break it up into kind of three buckets on the overarching case for business agility. So one of them is something that's already been growing in momentum, which is the subscription model. So if, a lot of times database vendors about 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we were still doing the perpetual model. It's a CapEx, you were buying it up front. And you really couldn't kind of get away from that because you wanted to, recognize the full ROI on that purchase. The subscription model was great for those that were already leveraging in the pandemic because you can downscale, you can upscale, you can kind of renegotiate terms on the fly. It was extremely well suited for being able to be agile from a business perspective. And we're going to see post-pandemic, for those that aren't not already on that CapEx subscription model, a lot of these database vendors just transition there. The other two are more related to the cloud. The first one being the marketplace. So when you think about the procurement model, the 2-month security assessment, the vendor risk management, the negotiation that comes with it, it's really painful. It's complex. It takes a lot of time. You can't just quickly consume the services from the vendor and get out there. And in the pandemic, that was critical. By having a marketplace offering on top of one of the cloud, your preferred cloud vendor, it's basically a click of a button to leverage a new specialized technology, which maybe is not produced by the actual cloud itself. So by having that partnership or having that marketplace availability, you can get past that procurement model. It's all about business agility. And tied to that is actually integrated billing, which not every service has that. It's that partnership with the cloud provider. And what that allows you to do as technology leaders is to leverage your existing spend. So I bet a lot of you have a partnership or a discounted agreement with Azure or GCP or maybe Amazon. By being able to click a button and start consuming this new service into your organization without having to go find additional budgeting, because that's already been pre-negotiated and you could just leverage your commit, is really empowering in terms of business agility and tying all of that together and just consuming new services on the fly. So post-pandemic, this is really going to be the world and the model that I think a lot of these database vendors, if they weren't already there, are going to have to meet the customer where they are. And Redis Labs was really, really well suited with our partnerships.
What are the trends do you see post-pandemic, like in the next 6 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think, we talked about on the vendor space, but really it's all about the consumer. I always like to think of somebody as my customer's end customer. What does that look like? And we know everybody's home right now, everybody's consuming through digital channels. And we are right now inside what I call a digital first world because there's almost no other additional options. But post-pandemic, do we assume that everything will normalize and kind of go back to what it is? I would argue that it won't. And I'll give you some really kind of basic examples. Let me use myself as an example, okay? So let me take a step back first. When you think about how we target consumers, right, especially digital consumers, it's always based on kind of generational gaps, right? So Xennials and Millennials, that's really our target base for a lot of our digital applications. We kind of leave boomers off to the side. And then there's a lot of, people like me, kind of like old school mentality. If it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to try something new if I don't have to kind of guy. If you ask my wife, I'm in a technology company. I've been in technology, my whole career. You ask my wife, I'm the least techiest person alive. That's just me. So for me to try something new, it takes a lot. But what did the pandemic do? It forced everybody uniformly across the entire population to consider change. And that's a game changer. So let me bring it back. When pandemic hit, I was going to the grocery, right? I put on the mask. I did what I had to do. But my wife kept telling me, hey, our grocery, Sam's has this app. Wegmans has this app. Why don't you give it a try, right? And eventually I did. It was the best thing for my family. And I got to tell you, the experience was fantastic. We now get the grocery for the last 4 months delivered to my home. It's a great experience. Now take that experience and, let's project that onto a senior who would never in their right mind think about doing a healthcare visit through a mobile device with their doctor. That probably wouldn't have happened. But because of the pandemic, they might have had that experience and they might have liked that experience. It actually works. So when we get out of the pandemic, because of these forced experiences and frankly, the kind of maturation of the digital channels, I really think the targeting for who is a consumer and actually the overall consumer base is going to be growing. And it's just going to accelerate what we already think of as a digital world moving beyond the pandemic.
I agree with you 100%, Alan. Hey, well said. Redis Labs, well, check it out. Brilliant company. Congratulations on a great career trajectory ascent. You couldn't be in a better position. How can people get in touch with you or the team at Redis Labs?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Hunter. So you could definitely reach me on LinkedIn, Alan Terletto. You could check me out. You could just reach out to me directly, alan@redislabs.com. I've been there early enough where it's just that first name, ALLEN at Redis Labs. And I think we're going to share a magazine with some of the audience here. So check it out. It's meant for the CIO. It's really exciting. Covers a lot of the topics I talked about, but also some fun stuff like a, Scott McNeely interview and a Schwarzenegger interview and stuff like that. So check it out and you'll see a lot of the way you can contact us through there as well.
Excellent. Great job, Alan. Good to see you. And top pick. Check out Redis Labs. Thanks.
Thanks, Hunter.
Bye now. Next up, we have our Tom Sweet, VP of Cloud Services at GM Financial. Tom, welcome to the program. Welcome to your panel, How Cloud Changes the Business and the Future of Work. Thanks for doing it.
Hi, Hunter.
Great to see you.
We have a lot of great panelists today. We have Ross Clanton from American Airlines, Chris Gates from Allstate, Will Hargis from Toyota Connected, and Ryan Brown from Visa. So this is going to be a little different than maybe some of the other talks. We're going to be a little bit technical on this one, and everyone speaking on their own personal behalf, not of their employer. And the first question out of the gate, and this is for Ross and for Ryan, so Ross can answer first and Ryan. As companies move from like a mode 1 world where it's waterfall PMO, it's big bang releases, it's maybe an on-prem data center, to a mode 2 where you're talking agile, you're talking DevOps and cloud, a lot of teams have to transform and they're becoming product-based teams, or I think Toyota might call it a factory team, where the whole team has all the skills necessary to deliver. How do you help get the product teams on board with that personal transformation? Because each person is going to have to change the role that he or she had in the past to be more multidimensional. So how do we change those teams and specifically the people and their mindsets to support the you build it, you run it model?
Yeah, hi everyone. Folks able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ross Clanton with American Airlines. Yeah, I mean, that's at the core of a lot of these transformations. I know I've spent a better part of the last decade of my career working on this stuff. And I think I view it in kind of four ways. There's the focus on kind of the operating model. How do you structure teams? How do you structure work? There's the focus on the people themselves. So what do you need to do culturally to get people comfortable working with that model? What are different approaches to focus on training, both through immersive learning experiences like dojo models, as well as maybe traditional training approaches? And then what do you do around practices? How do you really align on what the key kind of agile and engineering practices are? How do you encourage teams to kind of look at what practices are going to make use for them and adopt those practices at a team level? And at its, the core product teams, the big shift there is you're moving people from, where they owned a piece of the delivery lifecycle to they fully build it, they run it. And it is a learning curve. It is an adjustment. Honestly, I think the best thing to do is just get started with teams, actually get at a small scale, get some teams in your organization pivoting that way, learn about the model, what's going to work for you, what isn't. And then you got to kind of figure out how you're going to approach scaling from there. There's other teams in the broader technology organization. I've personally tried to get as much, when I'm doing this in companies, I'm trying to get as much of the organization moved into a product model as possible. Even traditional kind of infrastructure and operations organizations, really getting them organized around you build it, you run it model for their platforms. How do they provide those as a service to really self-service enable the product teams? And where you do have, in the different companies I've done this in, you still have certain roles that maybe don't lend themselves perfectly to a product model. You've got to figure out what's best in your company. Some do like an embedded model where they're taking some of those roles and embedding them into teams. Some create a kind of a separate support team that supports different product teams. There's definitely a few patterns out there. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out what works best in your company.
Cool, thanks. Ryan.
Yeah, so Ryan Brown, Visa, nice to be here. So I agree with everything that Russ said, actually. I think that it really comes down to a cultural shift. I think that, so I've been a long time proponent of DevOps and scaled agile, and been through a few adoptions where you are what you try to do first is you try to align to that value stream within your company. And then you reorganize your teams around that. And I think that starting small, like Ross mentioned, is really key, because what I've seen in the last few DevOps transformations I've done is that once you have one team that is fully onboarded, starting to deliver, that it piques the interests of others within the organization as well, where they start seeing the rapid turnaround that you're seeing and the actual, there's a lot of fear. I know I've come from a developer background, many years of supporting your own application in production, especially when they're large scale applications. But what you end up finding is that by doing so, you're able to proactively handle events, things that would normally become an event, become a non-event, really, in time, because you're building automation around it, which ultimately gains the trust of the entire organization. And then product, when you're talking about product, they start seeing that you're able to deliver more rapidly and more reliably to your customers, which is appealing to everybody.
Cool, great answer, thank you. Next one is for Chris Gates and for Will Hargis. The Department of Defense recently, last year, I think they chose a public cloud provider for a $10 billion contract. So obviously Department of Defense trusts cloud. What recommendations do you have for companies where you still have to work with your internal compliance and legal and cybersecurity teams and teach them about cloud? Because for many of them, if they're not as embedded in the community, they could still be afraid of it. But as you move forward, you're going to need cloud to deliver business value faster. So what recommendations you have to help teach your internal teams outside of IT about the benefits of cloud and to reduce their fears?
Yeah, Tom. Hey, I think this is a great, opportunity to quote like Stephen Covey, where it's really critical to seek to understand and then be understood. There are several groups out there that really care about the vitality of the businesses that we run. And they come in every day wanting to make sure that it's safe and secure in their own right. But they may not be as familiar with what's available in the cloud. And quite frankly, we may not be as familiar as where their interests or concerns are currently. And they change on a regular basis. There's all kinds of new laws and regulations that come up specifically around data. And it's important that we continue to embrace that team. I surround myself with a council that has a lot of these key stakeholders and their concerns actively engaged in our roadmap. We're thoroughly aware of what worries them. And then we use that to basically echo back how we're going to bring those concerns into a very highly automated, what we call essential services capability, which is a lot of their controls that they would expect to see traditionally embedded into some of the automation and ultimately made available in the cloud to be able to do what they're doing. When they follow you along this journey, I do learn a lot along the way, but they learn a tremendous amount as well. And at the end, what you see is they're so infatuated with the repeatability of what we're putting in place and the traceability of it that they start to ask for the same level of standards, even in our on-prem offerings. So the hygiene across the board gets rose, all boats rise when you bring in these key stakeholders and really just have them help you, iterate and help you be brilliant. Because without them, I guarantee you, even if we think we know, we're going to miss something and you're going to find yourself in a difficult situation. So it's important to seek first to understand and then be understood.
Great. Thanks, Chris. How about you, Will?
That's a great question. In my experience, bringing them in early and often is often a key, right? And also, in addition to that, in a lot of situations that I've been a part of, they're also just as interested. They know cloud's not going away. They know that they have to understand it more. And a lot of success that I found personally is kind of pointing to some educational opportunities, right? A lot of times I'll get the same question: where can I go learn more about how I can learn the nuances of cloud, and just give me a kind of a high level one-on-one understanding. And that's a great opportunity for synergies to be built upon. And from there, as you move into specific programs or projects or initiatives, then the questions become more intelligent, right? We can get down to brass tacks. We can really move to the meat of the concerns that are existing, especially, again, as you bring them in early. And then on top of that, kind of briefing them, just as you just mentioned about bringing them in early around roadmaps, letting them know where we're going, trying to get an early indicator around where those concerns might be, and being able to cut those off in the past is huge. It's absolutely huge. So there's kind of this long-term, always ongoing effort to bring everybody in and keep them as much as possible up to speed on all the evolutions of cloud and where there might be some risks and opportunities. And then there's the more in the moment opportunities in which we're going to try to talk through those kind of concerns and what we can do to move past them.
Yeah, hey Tom, let me add one more thing here, because Will's comments made me think about it. One other thing I've done, and it's worked quite well, is actually through Hunter's HMG organization and the relationships we build with firms like American Airlines or Toyota. We use those to kind of bridge the functions that you're talking about, right? Our attorneys, I make introductions to the attorneys of some of the colleagues I've met through this relationship. And I let them talk, I let those two talk about, whatever it is that the attorneys talk about, and allow them to kind of get comfortable with where they're going. And quite frankly, they do feel like they're part of the journey and like they're adding a lot of value.
Great, thanks. Okay, the next question will be for Ryan and Ross. Earlier, right before we spoke, Alan from Redis mentioned that Redis was open source software. A number of applications your companies probably use are open source. I mean, .NET Core, Node.js, Kubernetes, Docker, the list is huge. And there's one company back east, and they thought they had 500 open source components. They, in reality, had 26,000 open source components throughout their organization, and 37% of them had vulnerabilities. So as companies start using more open source in trying to get a governance around it, what is important for a governance plan for open source, specifically around vulnerabilities and licensing? And how do you work with the different teams to not only allow your company to use open source, but then to contribute back to the community. Because if you can contribute back to the community, you can build up a talent pool of those who are contributing to your open source. Maybe they might be good candidates to hire. And also it builds your company's brand as a thought leader. So we can go to Ryan first and then Ross.
Certainly, yeah. So I've been a long time proponent of open source software. I think that it provides an edge over competitors. At Visa, we actually have a fairly robust technology governance group that has created portals. But to your point, we have always said you're required to register your open source software, have it scanned by our vulnerability scanners. But we recently started enforcing a third-party vendor called Black Duck that allows us to scan software for open source software. And to your point, we've found I think we had 23% that was actually registered, despite the mandate from the top down. So bringing those kind of tools into place, I'd love to see the market open up more and have more options for scanning the software. Because when we are looking, it's twofold. Your question is really twofold. First is managing the use within your organization. For an organization like Visa, it's obviously very concerned about security. Security we consider our number one job for our clients, is to keep your data secure. We need to have insight into what we're deploying at any time. So having that kind of proactive scanning as part of your delivery of any kind of product is critical, I think. And through that, we have roles around what licenses are allowed to be registered and used. Legals involved with that as well, of course. And then the second part is something that I've been part of the Visa journey on the last year or so, is that contributing back to open source. Because open source is not only should we be taking from open source, but we should also be giving back. And a lot of that, to your point, is one of the things that drives me in that area is because while we may not have internal libraries or internal projects that we deploy yet to open source, or that we fully open source for others to utilize, we are using others. So why don't we contribute our value back to those projects? So we've involved legal, we've involved all of our different partners within what we call partners within Visa to determine a roadmap for how do we allow our users to contribute back to open source. And it's been a long journey, but we've created it's too much for this discussion really, but we've created a framework around how what the process is to allow you to contribute back to select open source projects.
Cool. Ross?
Yeah, Ryan covered the governance side of it pretty thoroughly, so I won't hit on that again. I'd largely say all those same things, but I'll add to the aspect of the talent pipeline and building your tech brand. I do really believe that in the industry right now, there is definitely a trend, a shift towards focusing on kind of building your engineering culture inside of your technology organizations. And I think part of winning when technology is underpinning everything we're doing in our companies now is a talent play too, and both growing and attracting really strong technology talent into the organization. And I do believe open source is a big part of that. And I know for me and for what we're doing even at American Airlines, we are embracing open source pretty significantly, both what we're consuming and leveraging, and we are starting to contribute back to open source projects. We aren't necessarily running our own open source projects yet, but there's a few even with my direct organization that we're becoming fairly larger contributors back to. But the more important thing is, I think a lot of the value in open source software is there's strong community around it. often can be leading edge. Usually new things are happening there first. People are familiar with it. So when you're trying to bring talent in from outside, they often have a lot of exposure, especially kind of, more progressive engineers that are out in the industry. So I'm a big fan and a big believer in building your tech brand. And I do see open source as a big part of that strategy. I think, and the other interesting thing is all of us have thousands and thousands of open source components in use in our companies, whether we know it or not. It's pretty much makes up all the software we use nowadays. So it is important to get your arms around it and govern it from a security perspective, just like you do any other software that you're using.
Awesome, thank you. We're almost out of time. So last question for Chris and for Will. Kubernetes is the most amazing app. What's the next thing that's going to come in 2021? So real quickly, Chris and Will.
Sure, I'll go first. So
yeah, you go first, Will.
Sure. So yeah, Kubernetes, a massive trend. Next things, low code environments and projects are definitely going to be a big part of it. Serverless continues to dominate. I've got my eye on Edge, right? I think Edge is going to be a massive trend. It's kind of ironic. We move from on-premise to cloud. Now we're right back again. But the demands of the consumer are going to continue to push us this way. In the automotive industry especially, right? There's all kinds of technology in the car, and it's very latent sensitive and data costs, right? Who can afford these data costs with all of this data being transitioned back and forth? The need for Edge is absolute. So especially as cloud providers continue to build these awesome capabilities, you're going to see, I think, a trend where instead of working off of bare bone compute and these types of traditional approaches to building apps, you're going to see cloud providers building kind of industry specific solutions that are more turnkey. And I think that's how you're going to see low code, no code really take on. Is you're not even going to be moving cloud providers. You could be able to pivot solutions very, very quickly.
Oh, wow, awesome. That was a good answer. Thanks.
Yeah, I think Tom, I think we're seeing it in our industry in the Internet of Things, IoTs, our devices that have all kinds of insight. You marry that up with the services now. We use hybrid cloud on-prem and off-prem to allow us to safely move data between facilities and cloud. And then ultimately you unlock that value when you tap into some of the capabilities that are being implemented now by an Azure, a Google, an AWS that does like voice to text recognition or image recognition. You're able to do things that like an organization of my size would not be able to actually develop with the budgets we have, but we're able to tap into the innovation that's happening there. So it's not a traditional cloud hosting situation you would typically see. It's really a service that you're sending a payload to and you're getting a return back. And I would encourage you, I think AWS's reinvents going on during this period of time, and Andy Jassy's pretty good about coming out with some good aha moments. So is Google, so is Azure. Being informed and figuring out a way to leverage those services on existing legacy technologies can make your legacy portfolio look a lot more sexy.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how do you learn? How does someone at the highest levels of an organization, when you're spending time doing budgets and you're unblocking teams and you're building relationships and you're seeking to understand your compliance and your governance, like how do you keep up? And this is for all of you, but how do specifically for Chris, like how do you keep up with what's going on at reInvent and all these other technologies that are coming?
Yeah, I tell you, Tom, historically as leaders, we've grown up in the era of IQ and EQ, right? Intelligent quotient and emotional quotient for driving change. Yeah. We see an emerging trend around TQ, the technology quotient, right? How technology aptitude are your business leaders and your own staff and you as an individual. We're focusing a lot on, kind of scanning the horizon and bringing these key messages back to our leadership team and making it available to them, having an open and transparent conversation around just what's out there. We challenge them. We make courses available for them to take as part of their development processes that they have, and really just challenge them to understand what's available so they can think differently around the areas of responsibility they have, and really challenge us from a technology standpoint to be better than we are today.
Awesome. Great answer. Anyone else want to fill in with that before we wrap up here? Here's Hunter. So I think we're just about done.
No, hey, great session. Tom, really appreciate it, guys. This was perhaps the best cloud session we've pulled off all year. I'd love to revisit this again sometime soon. And I can see besides Chris, the four of us, it's like the five of us is the hair club, right?
It's the background, Hunter. It makes my hair look thicker than it is.
Okay, Ross, nice to meet you. Will, great to see you. Ryan, thanks so much. Really appreciate it, guys. Awesome job.
Thanks.
Next up, we have crisis in career, a signature item here at HMG Strategy. We follow search execs, and search execs follow who we promote into the arena at the summit around throughout the whole year. If my panelists could turn their panel on, their cameras on, that'd be great. First up, we have Renee Arrington. Renee is the president and COO of Pearson Partners International. Renee, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hunter. Hello, everyone. How we doing?
Awesome. Great to see you. I know you're in Dallas.
I am, in fact, in Dallas today. Absolutely.
That's great. But you're with HMG on our global digital highway here. It's great to have you. You know, when you think of a crisis in career and really going through a pandemic, real heroes, real winners are being made, and real brands, professional brands are being minted. And what are you seeing out there relative to the CIOs, CTOs, and CISOs that are really stepping forward, leaning in, and creating an impact?
You know, that is a great question. And I think we're seeing a couple of things. The folks that are really creating an impact are leading in a way that they're unafraid to try something new or try something different. We've heard so much conversation in the summit to date to this moment about how folks had to pivot so quickly and in the spring and really get out there and stretch themselves and stretch their teams in new ways. I think looking back on this year, we're going to see CIOs and technology leaders who did things they'd never expected to do in this year and did so, you know, unabashedly, unafraid, you know, and just got out there and made it happen for themselves, their teams, and their companies.
You know, when you think of the CIO and the tech leader, when they assess their whole career, what should they be looking at and what should they be benchmarking against? And when are they ready for the next new idea, the next new opportunity, Renee?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Hunter. And I would ask the group here and kind of challenge everyone. One question to ask yourself as you're thinking about your next career opportunity, actually two questions. First, what do you want to do in your next role? And what gaps might there be in your experience that you need to take into account as you evaluate whether that next role is actually good for you? That's one big question. And then the second question is, looking at your company, are you on anyone's succession plan? Are you as a technology leader considered potentially on the COO succession plan or anybody's in your current organization, if in fact that's the way that you want to take your career? And if so, why? And if not, why not? And how can you get yourself there?
Perfect. Great job, Renee. Stay with me. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Mark Polanski. Mark's the Senior Partner Technology Officers Practice at Korn Ferry. Hey, Mark, great to see you.
Great to be here, Hunter. Thank you.
Hey, tell me what's new. You talk about leadership a lot and what's new in the marketplace. What are you seeing out there, Mark, that's uniquely different? Any recent placements that they really broke the model and they really just kind of redefined your mind the way a board and the CEOs reimagining, reinventing the whole CDO or CIO role?
Yeah, to kind of continue the theme that Renee started, it's all about courage, courageous leadership. And we've had this conversation many times, but courageous leadership now means, what did you do during the war? And the war is, of course, the war against coronavirus. So our clients are looking for people who weathered the war and succeeded in the war. And so I'm interviewing around what happened in 2020. So what did you try this year that didn't work? Why didn't it work? And what did you learn? What did you try this year that worked? Why did it work? And how can you replicate it or extend that experience into another new initiative? So really focusing on performance during the pandemic. And it's making our job in some ways a little bit easier, because you can't be vague about the last 9 months, whereas you might be vague about 10 or 15 years worth of career. This is very specific and very, very evidential. What happened? How did it happen, and why?
You know, really every industry was impacted differently, every company differently. You really, Mark, can tell the leader who really stood out and performed, right?
That's right. And the results are there. They're very visible, both in terms of how the company is operating, how it has pivoted its business model, whether that be towards the online direction or some other model. Gee, if it's a public company, what does the stock do?
There you go. Great stuff. Well, stay right with us, Mark. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Joon Yoon. He's with the Technology Officers Practice at Egon Zehnder. Joon, welcome to the program.
Nice to be here.
Hey, great to see you. First time with an HMG program. I've been friends with Chris Patrick and the whole guys, the whole team for a long, long time. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great to see you. You know, what are the key leadership experiences, traits that you look for in a modern CIO?
Yeah, good question, Hunter. And I think the good news is a lot of these topics and themes we've heard from from the guest speakers today. But a few things I want to highlight is one, continue to really focus on business first and being a true business partner, being able to shape, influence, and drive the right strategy, and enabling technology to be that strategic enabler to drive these enterprise outcomes. So I think that's going to be critical, and especially with the scenario we're in today with COVID, it's being able to have those conversations at the strategic level, but also be able to think about the business impacts around that. Secondly, change leadership. Given what's been going on, there's a lot of changes happening, and being able to not just deliver and execute, but be able to partner with the organization to be able to embrace and adopt these new changes. And if it's not just the IQ you bring from a technical chops perspective, but the EQ, the warmth, the courage, and all the things that we've talked about to be able to embrace new ways of doing things and being that change champion. Digital, we just talked about cloud, that's one aspect, but being able to put together a digital agenda, both internally and externally, being able to understand internally how to be more productive with the tools, but also externally how to be closer to the customer and enhance that customer experience and journey through some of those new technologies. And then I think what Nancy spoke earlier in the session around operational excellence and putting the right foundations in place to be able to have the right foundations to be able to scale, automate, and have resilient platforms to be able to drive technology. So those are the things that have been pretty evident based on the conversations. And the good news, Hunter, is the speakers are touching at all of those key points today.
Excellent job. Great to see you. And again, welcome to the HMG model. Looking forward to collaborating more. Next up is Steve Kendrick. Steve's the president of KER Partners. Steve's been a long-time HMG fan and friend. Steve, good to see you.
Hunter, good to see you and everyone on the panel. Great to be here.
Yeah, hey, here's the big question, right? Are you going to get out and ski this year?
The answer to that would be yes.
Okay. Already day 7, got 7 days in already. I think I'm probably ahead of you. Not being competitive. Hey, Steve, when you think of the trends that have your attention and the things that you're thinking about right now with your clients, both the hirers as well as the tech leaders that you represent, what's got your attention?
Well, it's a lot of these themes that have been cited around this 9-month, 10-month now almost blur that we've been in. How have you adapted? How have you pivoted as necessary? How have you, as a leader, been a great leader, inspiring leader to your team, but also to your C-suite or whatever the key business relationships and partners that you have? And also, what has not been said here, though, is this whole notion of how can you do those things but pivot very quickly and instill with a higher level of expectation, a greater expectation around pace, around acceleration. And that's just not with your team, but how are you also leaning on and collaborating with your external partners that may be assisting you in doing this? Because time is of the essence.
When you think of how people are positioning themselves in their current role, their current company, and for the future, any advice there?
Well, preparation, of course, is always key, right? I talked about this. We had a conversation about this the other day, but if a CIO or CTO or a substantive leader in the organization today is thinking about a change in the coming year, I would think about sort of a three-part recipe, and that is have a plan, be focused, and be prepared to take some action. You know, have a plan in that, decide at and arrive at this notion of you are prepared to make a change and you're willing to put the time in it to explore that. Think about what those drivers are. And by the way, it may not necessarily just be, hey, the next roll up to CIO or another CIO role. It might very well be with maybe a larger, more agile, more forward-leaning, progressive company in the marketplace, but maybe a shift sideways, but into a more impactful, more visible role.
Interesting.
Don't take a scattershot approach with this. Think about, you know, are there industries or companies out there which you have a great interest in? Think about, you know, the experience that you've built career to date. Where can you apply that? You know, you don't necessarily have to think about precisely staying in the same industry that you're in. And then finally, be prepared to take some action, as I've mentioned. And of course, you know what's coming, and that is taking the time to get it on your A list to update your resume. And I don't mean just in a cursory, perfunctory way. I'm talking about sitting down, spending some thoughtful time around, you know, cataloging what you've done over the last 2 or 3 years, what's been the most meaningful, the most impactful, and the most measurable, just in terms of what can you quantify? How have you been the most impactful to your business? Naturally, thinking about your network. What does your network right now look like? Have you been so heads down and focused that your external network right now is more limited than not? If so, then sort of shame on you, because, you know, again, it's you don't want to be caught sort of flat-footed, so to speak. So look, evaluate your network. Take a look at it. Is it too big? Is it too small? Is it the right caliber or quality that you're seeking? And then finally, relative to your network, I would encourage everyone to certainly lean on your trusted, even whether it's a small group or a select group, lean on your trusted industry peers, your contemporaries, maybe some previous bosses or mentors that you've had along the way. Keeping those three components together, again, having a plan, being focused, and being prepared to take action will get you in a good preparation point to have that conversation.
Steve, thanks for your insights. Stay with me. I'll be back with you in just a minute. Hey, Renee, back to you.
Yeah.
When you think of this year, it's a totally different year, right? Probably a 100-year event here. What should CIOs and tech leaders be thinking about in their annual review this year, setting themselves up for success in the 2021?
No, that is a great question, and it loops back around a little bit to my earlier theme of think about how you yourself have personally done things that were new or different or unexpected or outside of your comfort zone, but you also have to trickle that down to your teams, to your directs and their directs, and how have they stepped up, or as Steve said, maybe stepped laterally and taken on a responsibility that they didn't feel they were prepared for, but they had to because of what Mark said. It was the war, right? So you just have to really be mindful of how you've been stretched, how your team has been stretched, and show appreciation for that. And that might also spark some real creative thought about future professional development plans, both for you and for your team members, right? If it turned out that someone had to wear a different hat and it really looked great on them, right? They didn't think they'd like that role in infrastructure, but they really hit the ball out of the park, right? That might be the catalyst to say, wow, maybe this leader should pivot and focus more in a different area for the next stretch of their career.
In any other kind of insights relative to leadership, really in action, what it looks like, what a successful performing leader in the middle of this crisis, in the middle of, as Mr. Polanski says, war, what it looks like? Renee?
Yeah, absolutely. And Joon actually hit on the theme that I would echo. You have to know your business. You have to, particularly in a time like this, when it's all hands on deck, can we keep the doors open and the lights on? And if so, how? You as a tech leader have to understand the fundamental dynamics of how your business operates. How do you make money? How do you cut costs? What are the key relationships? And that then will allow you to put the strategy together and then deploy that strategy that can be impactful.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Renee. Hey, Mark, what changes have happened in 2020 in terms of recruiting? Your whole business model, it's been turned upside down. What's different?
Well, we talked a little bit before about looking for what did you do during the war, as Renee echoed. But I'd like to focus on one particular aspect of how we're interviewing differently. And it's all about change, as we've all said. Joon pointed to it as well. And agility. We all know that learning agility is the #1 competency for career success, and the ability to pivot. And the thought here is, if we can change entire companies, if we can change entire industries, and we all know the great examples pre and post COVID, and if we can change even entire countries, think India, think Ireland, think Hungary, why are we not talking about disrupting ourselves? The disruption of one's thinking about things the old way, thinking about things that were instead of things that are now and could be. So the possibility thinking aspect comes into play. And this model we call the self-disruptive leader. It's a mindset around change. It's an openness to change. It's an openness to be right and wrong, and know the difference and capitalize on what's right. But the bottom line here is the agility and flexibility of the individual. So we look for it, we test for it in our assessment process, and we sell it as much as we can.
Awesome. Love it, Mark. Stay with me. All right. I'll be back to you in a minute. Hey, Joon, what does winning look like for you in the role of the tech leader in the C-suite and the board?
Well, I think some of the themes we talked about in terms of from a tech leader perspective, it's be able to understand what the business problems are and how we can how can technology leaders enable the right outcomes to help support and drive those adoptions, right? I think that's part of it. I think secondly, it's understanding the culture and the business that we're operating in, and how we can influence, collaborate, and help drive a meaningful agenda that impacts not just the business results, but also helping the organization grow and develop as needed. And then I would say it's about, we always forget about this, but it's about having fun and making impact, right? And I think when you think about all these great panels today, they're all great leaders. They're mentoring, coaching, developing their teams. They're developing the bench, and they're sort of the inspirational tools for these next generation of technology leaders. And that's the one thing I commonly hear when I speak with tech leaders is, what are you most proud about? And it's, we talk about the impact, we talk about the results, but it's all about the team and leading the teams to help solve some big challenges and issues for the business. So I think that people development, team leadership is really important, and it's something that resonates when I hear about some of the stories that the team has provided today.
Certainly, to be a talent magnet and to be able to retain and grow your people, inspire them, right? And I love the idea of fun. That's really key, right? Love it. So back over to Steve. Hey, Steve, when you think of the operating themes for CIOs and their organizations this year, what are the big themes that you're picking up on?
Well, this notion of, again, I talked a little bit about earlier, this whole notion of speed, pace, change. Really, obviously, everything changed back in March with the beginning of COVID. So the good news is you've got that's on the forefront of everyone's mind. And I'm talking about specifically the business, the CEO, the C-suite, notwithstanding CIOs. So the good news, you have that sort of flywheel and that sort of momentum. Well, to borrow some of what I love Mark's comment around self-disruption. Well, the reality here is going forward, how do you have that same accountability and expectation about yourself, about your team, and again, about your solution partners? Ran into someone probably a couple of years ago. It was talking about, this is sort of on the early front end side of a lot of the digital transformation that was underway. And the reality was that many organizations that had been able to demonstrate their ability to successfully push through digital change, transformation, whatever you want to call it, disruption, certainly in the current year, have leaned on heavily external partners to help them do that. So it's also leaning on those collaborators, those partners with a higher expectation of, if it normally would take 6 months, why can't we get it done in 30 days and work towards that end?
Great, love it, Steve. Thanks. Real, final comments, because we're short in time here. Steve, best time ever to be a tech exec? Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Visible, the opportunity to be impactful, without question.
And how can people get in touch with you, Steve?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm fairly easy to find. Just Google me.
Great. There you go. Love it. Hey, Mark, best time ever to be a tech professional?
Well, you know my answer, Hunter. It's the best time to be a tech professional until tomorrow, which will be the best day to be a tech professional. The visibility has been increased, as Steve said. The tools we have at our disposal, the additional funding that we're getting because the world has realized that technology is saving them from the pandemic, both health-wise and business-wise. So yeah, really, really great time to be in the business.
Love it. How can people get in touch with you, Mark?
Google me. I'm the Mark Polanski that is not an astronaut.
Oh, you didn't go to the moon. Okay, got it. Great to see you. Thanks for your support, Mark. Hey, Renee, best time ever to be a tech professional?
No doubt. No doubt. This is the opportunity for tech leaders to shine, not only in their own organizations, but in the boardroom, because what you do is vital to your company's performance. And this is the chance to really shine.
How can people get in touch with you, Renee?
Same as my friend Steve and Mark, just Google me. I'm out there. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Great. Good to see you. Hey, Joon, last comment.
Yeah, I think this is a very exciting time. I think this is the tech officers are the tech leaders are very dynamic. I think it's a very transformational, pivotal role in the business. I think the new tech leaders look very different than 10, 15, 20 years ago, as they have to be a business strategic partner as well. And very, very fun times right now.
Excellent, Joon. Thanks so much. Renee, Steve, Mark, great to see you all.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks all.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Dr. David Bray, the Inaugural Director, Global GeoTech Center and Commission, the Atlantic Council. Hey, David, great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Hunter, especially after that conversation about the world is changing and we must change with it.
So what's in your mind?
Well, what's on my mind is we're seeing multiple entities, including Europe, we're seeing the United States itself, and we're seeing China recognize that data and tech is changing the world. And so what was in the past maybe the purview of a CIO and thinking about how it changes the enterprise, now CIOs need to recognize that they are changing the world in ways that are getting the attention of world governments, so much that Europe is proactively sending overtures to the incoming Biden administration, saying they want to actually engage a data and tech alliance with the United States that will be unprecedented. That would include possibly collaborating on tech R&D, rethinking how we do data governance together jointly as opposed to going our own separate ways. Meanwhile, China is hoping that the Biden administration rackets down some of the trade strong lines that the Trump administration did, but all indications are the Biden administration is saying they don't expect to, at least not in the initial overture. So be ready for tracking these three different continents, Europe, the United States, and China, recognizing that data is changing the world and possibly making CIOs roles a little bit more complicated because now you got to think about the geopolitical angles.
I love it. Hey, David, a little bit about the Atlantic Council and your background. Just a minute on the two.
Sure. Real quick, the Atlantic Council, we were created in 1961 when the Democrats from the Truman administration and the Republicans from the Eisenhower administration were so busy fighting amongst themselves that they forgot that we're stronger together with allies. So if we stand for anything, it's recognizing we're stronger together with allies, both globally, but also across sectors, and we have to work together. The GeoTech Center, we're focusing specifically on how data and technology is changing geopolitics, which COVID-19 has put in stark relief that if we don't think about the tech that we want, we will respond less adequately to a thing like a pandemic like COVID-19. But also if you look at what's happened with TikTok, what's happened with WeChat, these are all examples of things that are tech related now getting front page news and actually being shaped by CIOs as well as by policymakers.
You started with the government really as a young individual, 15 years old, right?
Yeah, I fell on my head at an early age. I was good with computers, and so they offered me a job at a physics facility. And then later, 2 years later, I got called down to the principal's office, and literally 4 individuals in suits, 3 of which were wearing sunglasses, said, "We'd like to offer you a job. It'll involve small satellites with the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization. It'll be classified, so you can't tell your parents what to do. Do you accept?" I believe I said yes without even asking what the salary was, simply because they said you won't be able to tell your parents what you do. Of course, 17-year-old, that's like definitely going to do that.
Very cool stuff. Hey, you know what? The recent testifying of tech execs on in DC really kind of showed a stark disconnect between the tech execs in the Valley and our current government. And then you have the influence of really strong governance from Europe over the years in terms of fines and such, levying huge fines. What's your take on the current incoming administration and the current way of things going on in the Hill?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right that the last 10 years, we've seen a widening gap between what DC is doing, what Silicon Valley is doing. Some of that involves what people think or didn't think happened with Snowden, but also the Affordable Care Act and the website there, that it seems that the love affair that we started 2010 with, in which we thought tech could save the world, now it seems like DC is a little more skeptical, but we're also seeing the questions that are being asked by DC policymakers aren't really the deepest of questions. And if anything, they're being used more for political pawns and political theater versus actually trying to get the brass tacks. Meanwhile, you're seeing Europe, which does have a very strong regulatory body, and they've actually tied that to their diplomacy arm. We had General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. If you're a CIO that does business with Europe and you don't know what GDPR is, happy to help out. I think HMG is also happy to help out because that is going to be impacting you. And like you said, we've seen some very large companies experience some very hefty fines as a result of General Data Protection Regulation. What's interesting, though, is Europe's only been fining, and you can only do the stick for so long before people say, okay, but where's the carrot? Where are we trying to go with this? How can we actually involve people in their data and do data with people as opposed to to people? And so what we're seeing now is, now that there's an incoming new administration, Europe is being very proactive, saying we want to work together on this. We want to think about new approaches to data governance that are in harmony so that we don't have 50 different states with each different rules and Europe with its own different rules, and it's hard to do business. We don't want to have a surveillance state like China. And at the same time, we want to try and figure out how we can make this work so that both continents are seen as a source for innovation. And so I would say for CIOs, now is the time to actually chime in, because we did not see the Biden administration, when it was campaigning, really put forward any data or tech agenda. In fact, it was kind of absent. And even though you've been seeing the initial rush of the nominees that are coming out, there's really not a lot of conversation about will they reinvigorate the Office of Science Technology policy or not? What do they see as a data agenda? I'm hearing, though, there are going to be two big things that will be coming out of this administration that are definitely must-dos that they'll be doing in the first 100 days. One is they want to do something about connectivity in the United States. They feel like there are certain places in the country, which we know, rural areas, but also some urban areas, in which you can't get high-speed internet. So they're going to try and push that, because that's going to be the basic sort of common denominator they want to work on. Then second, they do want to see, can data be a force for good for not just getting us out of COVID-19, but actually jumpstarting the economy. So if you're a company that has thoughts about that, there is a very strong possibility, aside from that there will probably be a stimulus economic renewal act that'll go out, if you can actually show the administration a better way, there could be a whole lot of additional government dollars to those companies that can use data, in particular, tech to a lesser degree, to uplift the United States economy and ultimately the global economy out of the sort of hump that we're sort of, or ditch that I would say is probably the better word, that we're currently experiencing for COVID-19.
David, you talked about geopolitics impacting tech and data. Do you think we're facing a new Cold War here?
Oh, we are in the midst of one. In fact, if anything, I would say, I talked about how there was that widening gap between Silicon Valley and Washington, D.C. over the last 10 years or so. There are signs that this has been going on for at least a decade, where active measures, by meaning other countries were trying to divide our private sector from our public sector, particularly in tech. Aside from the examples of Snowden, which again, you can take your stance on him. I personally do not think he should have done what he did, but that's me. That said, there's also signs that starting as early as 2016, 2017, there were actively intentional efforts to try and take anything out of context that would increase the divide between DC and Silicon Valley, trying to embarrass either side. And there's been some things like Project Maven, for example, where things were spun out of control and taken out of context. And so it's a recognition that our strength is when our private sector and our public sector work together on efforts, even though they're both independent. Obviously, certain countries, their private sector is their public sector, and so they don't have that coordination challenge. And so I would say we are definitely in the middle of multiple Cold Wars, one of which is, how do we figure out how we can work together and still have a private sector that is private, a public sector that does governance effectively, and then ultimately a public that we need to build trust in, both from the private sector and the public sector.
What technologies do you think are really going to help shape the global recovery and specifically impact drive value for the enterprise executive?
Yeah, so right now, everything with COVID-19 and the aftermath points to whatever you can do to both decentralize your operations, because we saw those operations that were centralized when COVID-19 hit, that was a lot more jarring to them. And so if you can make your operations more resilient, now is the time to make it happen. And that leads to the technologies that include computer vision and automation. I am seeing some companies do what I call AI process control, in which they have the computer vision watch what either the machines are supposed to do or watch what the humans are supposed to do. And if you have it watch enough times, you've effectively taught the machine what normal looks like. And actually then if you do some deviation from there, the machine can say, something went wrong here. Maybe it was a hardware issue, maybe it was a software issue, maybe someone is actually trying to get your machine or your humans to do something that they're not supposed to, but it can actually make recommendations on how to fix it. And it can actually give the assurance that you have what looks like centralized quality control, even if things are being done in a distributed, decentralized fashion.
You know, what are the trends you're tracking for CIOs out there?
Yeah, so for CIOs, I would say more and more, if your company is not digital from the beginning, and recognizing, again, there's still going to be a very strong importance on physical goods and physical interactions, but it used to be, you know, how IT was seen as a support function. It was how could it support the mission? Well, now IT is the mission. They're hand in glove. And what we're really trying to do is can CIOs and CEOs work together to say, how do we rethink and re-envision what we do? How do we let go of legacy past burdens and move forward? That's one trend. The other thing I'm seeing is increasingly CIOs, but also chief information security officers. I've talked to several that, you know, and including one that was with one of the FANGs, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, who said 2 years ago, their job when they were looking at the beginning of the year was 90% about cybersecurity, 10% about dealing with misinformation, disinformation, and less than 6 months into that year. So still at the midpoint for that year, 2 years ago, it was now 90% dealing with misinformation, disinformation, 10% with cybersecurity. Who in your company is dealing with that? I would say they're going to look to CIOs and CISOs because oftentimes misinformation, disinformation is spread through the internet and spread through the web. But at the same time, build your coalition, not just internally of your marketing folks, your legal folks, and your CEO, but also think about when a misinformation attack hits you, because one will. We're increasingly seeing private sector companies where someone will short their stock and then unleash some viral information that's not true or taken out of context, but that causes your stock to have a temporary price dip. They sell the short, they made profit off the misinformation, meanwhile your brand took a hit. And so increasingly, I would say have a playbook for how you're going to respond to that, because we're seeing this happen to not just Fortune 500s, but Fortune 2000s as well now.
So again, ask the question regarding the current election process. Did you think we were going to have this much difficulty with the mail-in ballot?
Yes, is the short answer. I would say I knew we were going to have difficulty of some sort, and some of it was actually not so much us. The difficulty was just more, there are actors sitting on the sidelines that want to emphasize or plus up anything bad with going with it, because they know that when we're a house divided, that's when the United States is not able to deal with global things. And if you look at all the last presidential transitions for the last 75 to 80 years, the most dangerous time, not just for the United States, but for the world as a whole, is that 6 months window after we have a presidential transition, partly because there are certain actors that know we are distracted. We're not able to pay attention. We're still trying to get people in different seats and positions, trying to get them confirmed. And so I would say to anyone who thought that 2020 was turbulent, 2021 could very well be even more bumpy than what we experienced in 2020.
Thank you, David, for that insight. Now, being a bit of a futurist, or a great futurist yourself, how difficult or how bad is the cyber environment right now?
It's bad. In fact, if anything, I would say, I mean, again, companies are trying to do their best, individuals are trying to do their best. But if this was anything else where year after year, we're actually getting collectively worse, I think we'd all be saying, wait, what's going on here? And I think the challenge is fundamentally, a lot of the protocols, TCP/IP, was built in an era in which it assumed that you handled trust in other measures, that the only way you got access to the internet in the early days was you went through past armed guards at a military facility. That's not the case anymore. And the question is, yes, we can add band-aids to it. Yes, we can add additional software, but like a lot of things, this is a case where we're trying to play catch up. And the reality is bad actors can actually spend a lot more funds and a lot more focused effort to do things than companies can. Even if you throw a lot of money at it, all they have to do is get the goal in somewhere. And then when you add on top of it the fact that a lot of cybersecurity is the human element, the cognitive element, you can do everything right, and one human may do something bad, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. And so I would say what we really need to recognize is if we wanted to pull together a group of CIOs and say, look, I'm spending a whole lot of money on this. This is only getting more and more challenging. Ransomware, as we know, is increasingly becoming more widespread and things such as that. let's identify how we can make the jump from here's the, say, the Boeing 747 that we have, and we want to jump to whether it's a souped up next generation Boeing 787 or an Airbus or whatever it is. How do we transition from the plane we have to the plane we want to get to with minimal disruption to our businesses? Because I think we may discover that, especially in an era in which there are now bots, there's increasingly more automated plus human attacks in which it's amplification of what a human's doing through activities that are algorithmic or bots in nature. It's only going to get harder and harder. And then when you add on top of it that now I only need 37 seconds of your voice to create an audio recording of something you didn't say. Who in your company is doing verifications when someone gets what they think is a phone call from your CEO saying, I want you to wire $250,000 to this location? How are you checking that that really is your CEO, even if it sounds like them? Are you asking them questions like, I know you want me to do this, sir, but what's the middle name of your first child or something like that? Unless that sound far-fetched, that did actually happen a year ago, in which we saw the equivalent of 250,000 US dollars leave a company because someone had a deep fake audio of the CEO.
Amazing stuff. Hey, David, great to see you, and best of luck at the Atlanta Council. Really appreciate our partnership and friendship. We've been partnering for over 10 years, I think. How can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So go to our website at GeoTech. It's GTC. That is George Tango Charlie. .atlanticcouncil.org. More details about us. But as always, Hunter, I really appreciate everything you're doing, because CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, we are the cavalry. It is particularly in an era in which data and tech is shaping the new decade. We've got to figure out ways of elevating our insights from the ground and from the trenches to those people that are setting policy and setting governance decisions, because if we don't, we may discover that those more autocratic nations are the ones that thrive, which clearly I want to see open ones. So with that, I appreciate it, Hunter. As always, be bold, be brave, be benevolent.
Awesome. Great to see you, my friend. Bye now.
Take care.
Next up, we have the Innovation Accelerator, an inside look at cool new tech from the Valley. I think most of these companies are from the Valley. Hey, welcome, gentlemen. Great to see you. Hey, why don't we start with Glenn? Glenn Chisholm's the co-founder and CEO of Obsidian Security. Hey, Glenn, a little bit about Obsidian, the aspect of within the enterprise, what you're looking to secure, and your whole USP and your go-to-market. What does an ideal client look like to you for Obsidian?
Hey, Hunter, thanks very much for having us. Yeah, Obsidian is a security company focused on protecting your SaaS, defending your SaaS environment, and providing you security resiliency. And so going from that full cycle protection, detection, response across your SaaS platforms, things like 365, Salesforce, Workday, et cetera, and obviously as you know, this pandemic's hit and people have become more aligned on SaaS, you know, we've become the sort of the SaaS solution, the SaaS security solution to help these people, to help you know, CIOs and CISOs defend their platforms, defend their environments. So you know, we're out there. We're out there every day working with, you know, a large range of companies, people that are focused, you know, that have SaaS environments that have a need for security, that have, you know, a need for be able to detect breaches, look for insiders, run incident response, look for data leakage, where, you know, the benefits of these platforms, the collaboration capabilities of the platforms have perhaps become a problem for some of these organizations, and, you know, provide the right solution at the right time.
You know, Glenn, I didn't think I'd ever say this, but what is it about these now legacy cloud platforms, these legacy cloud players that have left the security vulnerabilities out there, these open APIs?
Well, I think, you know, what it is, Hunter, is that as we've moved to these platforms, you know, we made these migrations. In some cases, you know, we made these migrations over a period of time. In other cases, we made these migrations really, really aggressively and really, really quickly because of COVID. All of these platforms, whether it be Salesforce or 365, you know, their underlying security is fabulous. Those are great security teams. These are great companies. But there's a shared responsibility model. There are things that you have to do to make sure your environment's secure, to make sure that you're using your environment the right way, to make sure you're making the right decisions, to make sure your security is absolutely properly configured. And I think that, you know, that as we've migrated from the traditional on-prem version of applications and services and capabilities, security needs to move in a very appropriate way to understand the new threats, the new challenges, and to be able to sort of equip themselves appropriately to respond to the shared responsibility model.
Excellent, great. And funding, and where are you relative to your go-to-market?
We're a Series B company. We're backed by fantastic VCs, Greylock Partners, Ashim Chanda, one of the originals from Palo Alto, Gaurav Garg, one of the originals from FireEye. GV is our third backer, so we're a Series B company. We've done 2 rounds of funding. We're out there selling every day, and we have teams out there, and we're in the HMG marketplace. We'd love you to look us up and get engaged with us.
Excellent. What does an ideal prospect look like for you, Glenn?
Anyone out there using SaaS? If you're using SaaS, give us a call, hit us up, talk to us.
Awesome. Love it. Great. Hey, next up, we have Monti Knode. Monti is the Director of Customer Success at Horizon 3 AI. Monti?
Good evening. How are you doing, Hunter?
Great. Same idea, same talk track there.
You bet. So I'm the Director of Customer Success. I'm responsible for our customer journey and strategy at Horizon 3 AI. And we are an offensive cybersecurity company that applies attacker techniques to data graphing models. And then we automate them and mesh them with some really cool AI to gain insights at incredible speed and accuracy that your standardized pen tests don't do, and really follow up on that with chaining models so that we can show people how an attacker would actually go after their network. Some of the other things, some of our big companies that we look at, and some of our best partners, you're looking at a lot of the hospitals and medical side. They're under a lot of attack right now. We've seen with COVID, as the attack surfaces have really blown up, a lot of the medical side is having a hard time dealing with some of this. So we're partnering with a lot of them and the banking industry right now, and those seem to be some of our most promising aspects going forward.
Interesting. And funding and where you are in terms of your go-to-market?
So right now, we launched a few months ago. We're looking at our Series A here early in Q1 this next year. We're kind of a small but scrappy company right now, very heavy on retired military, and we're about half and half retired military, people who have special operations and cyber operations experience, as well as some really high-end private sector guys who came on with Snehal and the team. It's an amazing group.
Well, you have an amazing CEO in Snehal Antani, right?
We do. He's pretty darn awesome.
Great job. Okay, I'll get back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Nikhil Gupta. Nikhil is the co-founder and CEO of ArmorCode, serial entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur with several exits, right, Nikhil?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Sure, a little bit about ArmorCode and your go-to-market.
Sure. So, at ArmorCode, we are making application security easy. As everybody is looking at in post-COVID arena, that their digital transformation has accelerated and become 10x. And as a result, I saw this as a perfect opportunity to start this company in the midst of COVID. The idea here is to simplify the application security. If you go and ask any leader, whether it's CIO or CTO, how many applications you have, let alone their security posture, and everybody will be like 99% will be scratching their heads. So the idea here is to, kind of solve that problem, provide them the visibility, and how do you automate, because, you have to simplify basically security, and it has to move security towards the left. And also you want to make sure there needs to be a continuous compliance as well. Yeah.
When you think of the major infrastructure changes to work in this new era, what are those changes?
So the biggest thing is the trend which is happening is both infrastructure on from where people are working, as well as where the workloads are moving. So where people are working, as of now and maybe for next near foreseeable, people are working remotely, which has kind of has increased the need for collaboration, if you will, right? So back in the days, in order to secure your application, you have a security team and you have a development team, and they within the same roof, they are not talking to each other, looking into each other's eyes to eyes, but so there's an inherent and increased need of collaboration. That's something which we are addressing. Second thing is the workload. So workloads are moving more and more towards the cloud. As Glenn mentioned, more and more companies are moving towards SaaS, more products are moving towards SaaS.
Excellent. When you think of the future of desktop and supporting remote work, what comes to mind?
So I think so it's inevitable. There has been like technologies forever, virtual desktop interface and all those things, but I guess there's always a forcing function, if you will. And I guess there's COVID has kind of pushed the things to the edge. And I think so what will happen is that more and more things will work remotely, and so it's talking about the collaboration and, having, and one of the things which it brings is the security challenges, if you will, when things are remote, because earlier you were under the same umbrella, you had the firewalls protecting you, and, now everybody's remote, and, this is some of the problem which our friends at Horizon 3 are kind of trying to address is, bringing visibility of, how, and, how do you secure, how do you get visibility across that.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming on the program. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, Glenn, when you think about being a founder and a CEO of a startup, that's a different journey. It's a different model. What was it about your DNA, your passion to make this all come together and happen?
I mean, there's a certain enjoyment and there's a certain excitement in being able to build something, Hunter. And when I say build something, I mean, it's not only the company, but it's also the technology. You want to, you're building something every day. You're building, the capability and the services and the team around HMG, and we're building product and team around our company, and being able to build a product, being able to sit down, think about the problems that are affecting companies, the problems that are going to affect companies over the next 5 years, and then start building something based off that. There's nothing really more enjoyable about getting up in the morning than doing that. And so, the opportunity to get out there and do that, the opportunity to work with fantastic people, it's very hard to find something better to do.
Excellent. When you think about SaaS, it's been around for a long time. How should enterprise think about security for the SaaS environments?
I mean, it has been around for a long time. I think, you're obviously seeing acceleration. You're going to see, you're going to see ebbs and flows in these things. But, what we've come to understand is that some applications are best run by the creators of those applications. They can provide fantastic service. They can provide fantastic capability. But as you think about how you use those, and as you think about, this change in the world where, the business has made decisions to buy various applications, the business has made decisions to use various applications, all of which are, absolutely valid, absolutely necessary. Security needs to be there, and the technology department needs to be there to thinking about, well, okay, how do we empower people to get the most out of these things? How do we empower people to use these things most effectively? How do we not be the people that say no? How do we be the people that say, yes, let us make this work. Let's make this work the best way possible. And then, getting past sort of that initial reflexive little problem that you sort of sometimes see, getting to the absolutely, let's get this done, let's get this moving. And then, as I said, go back to that shared responsibility, which is, where is that line? Where does the provider draw that line? And how on earth do we think about that for our company? How do we think about that for our internal capability? And then how do we deploy our internal capability to provide additional value? Because, 10 years ago, when we were focused on the simplistic things, the firewalls, the platform, the operating system, we've moved away from that. We've let somebody else take on that work. We'll let somebody else do that. How do we now think about the more important things, the data, the people, what they're doing with the data, how that data is moving, the things that truly matter to the business? The data is what makes the business. The data is what makes the business valuable. That's where security should be focused.
Thank you, Glenn. Walk me through what an example of how Obsidian is being used today with a client.
Yeah, look, I mean, Obsidian is a SaaS platform. It's operational in minutes, not an exaggeration. It can be operational in minutes, just like it is a SaaS platform to defend SaaS. It's using SaaS to defend SaaS. Companies bring us up, we reach into those SaaS platforms, we understand who all the users are, we understand all the data, what's being done inside the environment, and then we enable the security team to protect that environment. We enable them to understand who might be trying to get in there that shouldn't be. We enable them to understand the insiders that may be trying to extract data that, in a malicious sense. We help them maintain the configurations. Security teams can't be experts on all these platforms, so we can help them understand the configurations. We can help them remove privileges and users, and then we can help them sort of really, really understand who's got access to their data, how that data is being shared. So, what we see is people using it for fundamentally improving the capability in their environment. It's the best way, getting it in there before you have a problem. Fundamentally, using it to understand exactly what's happening. And then obviously we do see it at occasions where it's used in instant response. We have a problem happened a few days ago. We can go in there, we can go backwards in time, understand what happened and give you that picture.
And people can learn more about you in the HMG marketplace. Set up a meeting.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Please do.
Great, Glenn. Stay there. I'll be back to you in a minute. Monty, when you think about innovation being so critical in a startup, Talk to us about innovation at Horizon 3. What does that mean to you all?
So innovation, you've heard it from several people today that speed definitely matters. And you've had a couple other speakers on here who have talked about that speed as well. Trying to maintain that speed, especially when you're a young startup and you're getting product out the door with that go-to-market, that's so very important. And so we're employing some of the different communication tools, I think, that other people are. But one of the big things that really appeals to me is that encouragement of ideas. You've talked about that thought leadership, Hunter, and finding that just doesn't always come from the top down. We have a lot of young, very enthusiastic and smart people who are thinking about what it would be cool if, and identifying that what would be cool if is ways that we're going after that innovation to try and bring our capability to market much quicker and much more powerful.
Well, winning matters, and winning in security matters. And you have a military background. That's actually where you met Snehal, right? So a little bit on that.
You bet. So Snehal was the CTO at Splunk while I was the deputy CIO at U.S. Transportation Command. And it just kind of happened as a fluke that we got to come out with, but within a couple of minutes, we were whiteboarding how to solve world hunger on a board and everything. It was pretty amazing. The military background, and I think something that Snehal learned was going into that public service and learning how to support something that was a little bit bigger than yourself, getting to be a part of a team that had no kidding headline impact in the newspapers and across the nation and the world was something that really had a deep impact on both of us. I just retired after 26 years out of the military, and it was interesting getting to see the 2018 elections versus the 2020 elections right now. And now you're seeing the news reporting, how we were doing things like Hunt Forward in Estonia, where we were partnering with global nations to stop some of these other nations from being able to hurt the US elections, to be able to get in there and disrupt. And so being a part of that something bigger is definitely something that had a big impact on me. And the second part on that is I think I grew up a consumer. I don't know about Glenn and Nikhil and even yourself, but as a consumer in the military, we were always buying these products. Now being on that producing end, it's one of those things that I have, bringing that experience of the back on that frustration of being capable, tools rich, but capabilities poor, where you're constantly going through this rationalization. We see a lot of companies right now that are going through trying to decide, well, I've got all these different tools. What are you displacing? And so helping them understand that they've already got 5 tools that are overlapping each other in certain sectors is interesting. And I think that's something that coming in here to be able to fix what matters and actually support some of the different companies that we are and help them get off the ground and find some of these things that they never would have before has really been pretty heartwarming for me with the company.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for your service. That's amazing.
Thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure, and I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat if they'd let me, but they won't.
Good job. Hey, Nikhil, kind of comments on your entrepreneurial kind of journey, and you've done several exits and your passion around ArmorCode.
Yeah, so I guess, my mantra is, dream big and dream often. Dreams do come true if you never give up. So, as you mentioned, I did my first startup in 2020. That was, long journey. We raised like almost $200 million, went from, team of 3-4 people all the way to 200, went through that entire journey. It was a very good learning experience. And, there were key learnings over there that basically, as an entrepreneur, you have to solve a technology problem, but more importantly, you have to solve business problem. And, you also always have to constantly learn. And so, and after that, did a couple of other ones. And most recently was Avid Secure, which was a phenomenal success where, we built a cloud security posture management in a short interval, with just 1.5 years, right from fundraising to all the way to exit, having large customers with 6-digit contracts and all. And that's what kind of, keeps an entrepreneur excited. So that's where, the next opportunity I got, even though it was COVID, I said, this is the time to, start something new. And there's always insecurity. Unfortunately, the bad guys are always a little bit ahead of you. You always have to be innovative. And so that's what kind of excites me. And I just keep telling, fellow entrepreneurs and everything that, try to solve a business problem and look at the bigger picture and just persist it. And basically, yeah.
Love it. Great story. You know, Glenn, back to you. How can people reach out to you to get started with some kind of discovery meeting?
You know, as I say, look at us on the HMG marketplace, send me an email, you know, glenn@obsidiansecurity.com. Happily engage with any of you, you know, look forward to chatting. Always love to talk to someone new.
And cross sector, right? So, I mean, across industry.
Yeah, I think if you're using, you know, we've got telco, we've got manufacturing, we've got healthcare, we've got pharmaceutical. You know, if you're using SaaS, then I think, you know, we're absolutely here to help you.
When you listened to the cloud panel earlier, anything jump out at you? Come to mind, Glenn?
I mean, I think it's, you know, there's so many amazing sort of discussions today. I mean, I think that one, and then the last one with the Atlantic Council. I mean, I think, you know, as you start to think about these various the geopolitical environment, the IT environment, the career environment, all of these things create new challenges for us. And as we need to adapt, we need to be creative, and, you know, we need to constantly be learning.
Awesome. Great stuff. Monty, final word.
So one of the questions you ask pretty often, Hunter, is it it's a great time to be in? I got to tell you, one of the things I'll pass on a militarism that we definitely got from there is shape or be shaped. And right now you've got a lot of CISOs who may not think it's such a great time to be in because there's a lot of pressure. And if you haven't been preparing for this moment with your strategy and vision, you might be a little caught unawares. If you've been very compliance oriented or kind of that checkbox oriented CISO, you're going to find yourself in a bad place. But I'll tell you what, if you're open and willing to listen and you are wanting to move fast, it is an incredible time to be in this industry.
So lead courageously, lead boldly, take risks. What would you say?
You bet. Absolutely. That taking risk is something that I would definitely capitalize on. That's something that we could all learn a little bit from, is be a little forgiving when it doesn't pan out, and encourage people. Don't just be open to it, but encourage people to take those risks on your team.
Love it. Great job, Monty. Nikhil, final word?
I totally agree with Monty that, you know, you have to be risk-taking, both as a CIO or a CISO, right? Because, you know, you have to take things by the head on, and, you know, challenges are there, and not necessarily the things which have been working in past will work it. So you have to be innovative and try new things. So constantly do that. And same messages for the entrepreneurs, right? This is a great time to start a company, and, you know, just, yeah, keep on.
Nikhil, Glenn, Monty, really, thank you very much. What a great session. Really good to see you all. Folks, if they reach out to you, take a meeting. And I'd encourage everyone who's attending the summit today to reach out to these three companies and to learn more.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, big shout out. Thanks, guys. A big shout out again to Dallas Fort Worth SIM chapter. We've been working with them with the SIM chapter for going on 14 years, a great relationship. A big thanks to our partners, Adobe, RingCentral, Informatica, Redis Labs, SMC Squared. Thank you very, very much. And August Policio, August, why don't you come out to the forum here, the stage, and let's talk a little bit about the 2020 Top Technology Executives That Matters recognition program, a program we've been running in parallel with our recognition program for over 12 years. August?
Hey, Hunter, thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody for sticking to the end of the summit to help us recognize two really incredible technology leaders in the area. First, I'd like to welcome Pat Connolly onto the screen. She was with us in an earlier panel. Hey, Pat, how are you? Great job today, by the way.
Hey, thank you so much.
A little background on Pat for those who maybe weren't with us for the panel or haven't met her before. She is the CEO and founding partner of SMC Squared. Pat's been a great friend and partner for our Dallas events for a few years. It comes from a really impressive and diverse career of almost 3 decades in IT positions and in board seats, financial services, professional services, legacy retailers. She's done it all. Notably, she spent 25 years perfecting her leadership style and qualities with Target Corporation. But about 4 years ago, she was a founding partner for SMC Squared, helping to spearhead a really cutting edge global insourcing center model, which eliminates and costs for her clients, but she never loses sight of the employee-centric culture that's so important to her. Pat is passionate about team building and passionate about people. Congratulations for accepting this award on behalf of your wonderful team that you have at SMC Squared. And before I hand it over to Hunter, I think we have a little clip that your team put together congratulating you.
Hey, Pat, great job. Always really enjoyed and appreciated your professionalism, your thought leadership, and that you really are an industry visionary. And really enjoy you. We have a lot of fun collaborating. I think you have an amazing company. And what a great panel today, huh?
Yeah, thank you so much, Hunter. This is really an honor coming from you and HMG. And yeah, congratulations on the summit. A lot of very interesting interviews, dialogue, really enjoyed every minute of it.
Excellent. Congratulations. And we want you to be part of our 2021 Global Technology Executive Top Executives That Matters program in March of 2021. Thanks again, Pat.
Thanks, Hunter.
Great. Congratulations again, Pat. Next, I'd like to move on to Srinivas Madipudi. Srinivas is the CIO and VP of Service Delivery for Aero Exchange. Srinivas is truly a global IT leader. He leads his teams to provide secure and highly available IT infrastructure to serve Aero Exchange's products to a worldwide customer base. A testament to his leadership medal, when I said leading his teams, I mean Srinivas currently manages 6 distinct teams at Aero Exchange, ranging from application development, corporate infrastructure, production infrastructure, business-to-business messaging, database administration, and customer support. He sets an example for all CIOs working directly with his CEO, Albert Kosharek, in aligning the information systems with the organization's vision and helping to architect their strategic company goals. Srinivas, proud to have you on the program today, and congratulations for earning this award for your team.
Hey, Shri, it's always great to see you and always good to be with you. And I loved our relationship over a decade going strong, I think, with the summits in Dallas. You're really, truly one of the inspirational thought leaders and charismatic leaders that I look to and look for in the Dallas area. Appreciate all your active engagement over the years and many more into the future. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hunter. And my success goes mostly to the good leadership team from our company led by Al Kozrak, as well as my own team. They really worked hard, and good smaller team, and local SIM and DFW community group, which I've been part of it with HMG for a long time, about 10 years. Certainly makes my day worth because you can enjoy both, just community part of it as well as the organizational part of it. Thank you, Hunter, again. Congrats on your day. Great event also. Yeah, another one.
And remember, we'll have that global program in 2021. We'll invite you to it as well, Shri. Hey, so August, another great program. I think another world-class summit that in collaboration with DFW SIM, our partners, the thought leaders, our presenters, the search executives, our entrepreneur, tech leader founders pulled off here. Great, brilliant job. I want to shout out to our speakers, our panelists. Looking forward to an amazing 2021. I think everyone here, we leaned into it strongly and with courage and with conviction and pulled off an amazing year. Looking forward to a better 2021. Everyone have a great, safe holiday. Again, be well, be safe, and looking forward to an amazing 2021. Thanks so much and happy holidays.